Roman slave owner. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76, Consecration. In terms of loyalty, there are probably not many who can surpass the samurai. During World War II, the various suicide charges of the Japanese devils left a deep impression on people. After the defeat and surrender, many people went to the palace to commit seppuku. Do we have to make them samurai? What if the big river crab god is causing trouble? But if they become knights? Rome already has a knight class. There is a hard requirement to become a knight. That is, the property must reach 300,000 as, which is 18,750 dinars. It is impossible to get hundreds of knights in a short time, so Levi decided to make the retainers a mixture of a certain military commission, knights, and some Confucianism. Levi pondered for a while and said, "Tell them that the enthronement ceremony will be held in 3 days." "What is the enthronement ceremony?" Gita asked. "You will know when the time comes," Levi said. Gita still didn't understand it, but was driven out by Levi. Although it was a bit ridiculous for a small knight to do these, Levi knew that he had to do it, and do it solemnly. He decided to learn from the enthronement method of knights in later generations, at least to look decent. The sky outside was cloudless. Although the atmosphere in the hall was very lively, Memmius' heart was still gloomy. He was wearing armor, holding a spear in his hand, and standing quietly in the hall with other guards. The enthronement ceremony of some retainers had been held yesterday. The ceremony was extremely grand, and the positions of those retainers were also adjusted. The lowest position was also transferred to the centurion, and served as a strange position called instructor. Some people who were already in high positions, such as a military tribune, directly became the political commissar of a legion, basically a promotion of one or several levels. The salary was also greatly increased, reaching the same level as those centurions and legion commanders. It is said that except for the military, everything else is managed by these retainers. Many people are very curious about this. Why set up such a position? A familiar hearty laugh came from a distance, and Memmius knew who it was without looking. Not surprising to him, Aeneas also became a retainer. Since being chosen by Livius, Aeneas has started his own journey of prosperity, with his official position rising again and again, and there is no end in sight. Moreover, he has always been proud of his loyalty to Livius, and he brags to everyone about how wise and brave the master of the family is. "Hey, Memmius, you are here too." Aeneas suddenly found Memmius standing in a corner with his head down, and walked over to pat him on the shoulder. Due to the significant increase in the number of guards, Aeneas has been transferred to the 2nd Legion as a senior centurion. "Yes, sir," Memmius saluted and said, which made him even more upset. "You know, I have a great chance to become a military tribune. 2 of the guys who competed with me became instructors, and 1 did not pass the loyalty test. There is only one person who can really compete with me." Aeneas shared his joy with him, but he didn't know that he was stabbing Memmius' heart with needles again and again. "Really? Congratulations." Memmius tried to force an ugly smile. "Memmius, I have always regarded you as a friend. I have a piece of news for you," Aeneas suddenly whispered. "The master of the family is very dissatisfied with some people, especially those who are capable but not very loyal. These people may never be promoted. The master of the family only values one thing, that is loyalty. Do you understand? Never be promoted?" Memmius was shocked. He remembered that he was deprived of his position. Could it be that he was added to the blacklist? "Thank you, Aeneas, my friend," Memmius said. This news is really important to him. Now it is not like before. Promotion depends on assessment results. This should be news that some senior officials know, only the soldiers don't know. "Aeneas, what are you doing there? The master of the family is coming." At this time, a centurion said, "Haha, chatting with a former colleague." Aeneas said, "Colleague?" The centurion said, "Isn't this an ordinary soldier?" Could it be the colleague who was deprived of his position before? He was just confused for a moment. Aeneas said vaguely, "What a mess. I think people who eat and drink from the master and cannot carry out the master's orders should be driven out." A centurion with a scar on his face said at this time, "You're right, I can't stand people who are disloyal." A decapitator said, "Aeneas, I think you should consider staying away from such people and don't let them ruin your future." A military tribune said. Aeneas was embarrassed. He had always regarded Memmius as a friend and really didn't want to give up on him. Memmius was scared to death. If he was labeled as disloyal, he would not be able to stay here in the future. "Commanders, the battlefield was too noisy at the time. I didn't hear the master's order." Memmius quickly explained. "What do you mean by not hearing it clearly?" "It's just a quibble," a centurion said. "Our commanders are talking." "Why are you, a soldier, interrupting? Why don't you go out and get the 10 military sticks yourself?" The scarred centurion continued. "Enough, Sinas, you just want to compete with me for the military tribune, right? If you have anything to say, come to me, not my friends," Aeneas said angrily. Memmius suddenly realized that it was no wonder the scarred face had targeted him again and again. Everyone was silent. Since it involved a fight between two people, many people still didn't want to get involved. "What are you doing?" At this time, an angry voice came from the side. Everyone looked back and found that it was the military judge Liberius. For a moment, everyone was scared to death, and they all ran to their positions in fear. Not long after, a formation of 15 rows was formed. Everyone knows Liberius's habits. He hates people's disheveled clothes or scattered formations. Once he sees it, he will insult it at the least and punish it severely. He is a famous big devil in the guards, and his reputation is even higher than that of Geta. "What were you doing just now?" Liberius continued to ask with a gloomy face. "Report to the commander. It was just a small matter just now," the scarred centurion said. "Yes, it was just a small matter. Centurion Sinas and I were arguing about who should treat after the ceremony," Aeneas also said with a red face. Hearing this, someone couldn't help laughing, but seeing the dead face of Liberius, he quickly held back. Liberius wanted to get angry, but Levi was about to come, so he had to hold back for the time being. Chapter 77 Surah. Liberius wanted to get angry, but Levi was about to come, so he had to hold back for the time being. "Everyone, get in formation, I'll deal with you later," Liberius said. "Put on your helmet. Stand back a little. Stand up straight. Don't you know how to stand up straight?" Then there was the sound of a kick on armor. After half a day, the team was much neater. Yes, Liberius found that his obsessive-compulsive disorder had finally improved a lot. A military bugle sounded. "The head of the family is here," a soldier shouted loudly. Everyone quickly straightened their chests and raised their heads, waiting for Levi's arrival. Soon, led by 4 guards, Levi appeared in front of everyone. Levi was wearing a white toga, which was very rare, which made him look much more mature. He sat on an ivory-studded chair in the middle and glanced at everyone, and everyone immediately quieted down. A guard shouted loudly, "The enthronement ceremony officially begins. Lucius Aeneas, come forward to listen to the enthronement." Levi stood up and slowly walked to a step. Aeneas stood up, walked to the steps and knelt down. "Lucius Aeneas, I ask you, are you willing to become a retainer of the family of Basius Livius?" Livius asked with a serious face. "I am willing, I swear here. I will protect the honor of the family with my life. The honor of the family is my honor. Where the sword of the master of the family points, I point. I swear to be kind to the weak. I swear to bravely fight against violence. I swear to fight against all mistakes. I swear to fight for the unarmed. I swear to help anyone who asks me for help. I swear not to hurt any woman. I swear to help my brothers and comrades. I swear to treat my friends sincerely, and I swear to be loyal to my love until death," Aeneas said loudly. Livius took out a dagger and tapped his longsword 3 times, and then gave him the dagger. He was also given a white shirt and a red cloak. The white shirt represents loyalty, and the red cloak represents bravery. "Remember the oath today. As long as you don't betray the family will never betray you," Levi said. Aeneas saluted neatly with the Roman military salute. "Long live Levi!" Aeneas retreated, and the next was another guardian knight who was canonized. Levi smiled slightly. This was probably the largest canonization of retainers in history. 2 days later, the canonization of retainers was also over. The 8 virtues of retainers: humility, honesty, mercy, bravery, justice, sacrifice, honor, and loyalty, became the hottest topic. Levi did make a small modification, changing the spirit to loyalty. Those retainers were basically promoted one level, with a salary increase of 100 dinars per month, and accepted the war horses, chainmail, daggers and clothes presented by Levi. The daggers were real steel swords, and the guardian knights soon discovered this and were very excited about it. In addition to the 8 virtues of retainers, they somehow always felt a sense of grandeur, making them feel superior without realizing it. Next, Levi entered a dormant period and began to prepare for the upcoming war. He purchased a large number of grains, iron ingots, medicinal materials and other supplies, which are all necessary for a war. Winter passed and spring came, and the new year arrived. The Adriatic Sea was calm, and people came and went in the port of Brindisi. A large number of specialties were transported here from Greece, Syria, Asia and even Parthia. This is a very busy port in Italy. Suddenly, a piece of sail appeared on the sea. At first, people didn't pay attention, but soon there were more and more sails, almost connected into one, which caused people to exclaim, "Could it be that pirates are coming?" Someone said in horror, "Recently, pirates have been very arrogant. They not only robbed supplies at sea, but also even coastal towns. Even some temples in Greece were looted, which can be said to be extremely arrogant. Even some armies can't do anything about them. Many places are afraid of pirates." The port of Brindisi immediately panicked, and a large number of people screamed and left here. But some brave ones stayed. As the ships got closer and closer, they found that the fleet was almost so numerous that it could be described as covering the sky and the sun. There were at least thousands of ships, so they concluded that this was definitely not an attack by pirates, because pirates definitely did not have such strength. Could it be that some country had attacked? But it was unlikely. Which country dared to attack the powerful Rome? Soon someone thought of something, and then his face changed. They almost thought of a name at the same time. Not long after, they really found the eagle flag on the ship. This was indeed a Roman ship, so there was only one possibility. That was him. Sulla led the army back. Some people were scared and fled in all directions. It was obvious that there would be a war here. Some people stayed. Sulla was the former consul of Rome, and he had made great achievements in Greece, destroyed countless enemies, and promoted the reputation of Rome. He was a hero of Rome, so they should not do anything to him. A tall man with white skin, blue eyes, and acne on his face stood on the ship, looking at the port in the distance with a very complicated mood. Sulla finally came back and brought his army back. After a ship docked, a large number of soldiers quickly boarded the dock without encountering any resistance. "Pass my order. Order Ephyra to land and attack Brindisi immediately," Sulla said. "Yes, sir." A large number of soldiers gathered on the dock. Ephyra only assembled 2 battalions and ordered the army to advance quickly to Brindisi. Speed is of the essence, and maybe a sneak attack can be successful. But to Ephyra's disappointment, the gates of Brindisi had been closed, and soldiers appeared on the top of the city wall, which completely shattered the possibility of a sneak attack. It seemed that only more soldiers could be assembled for a strong attack. More and more Roman troops landed successfully and gathered here. Are they going to resist to the end? Sulla also came with some officers and said gloomily at the closed gates, "It seems so." Ephyra said. Everyone was in a low mood. Didn't the Roman people welcome them? At this time, the gates of Brindisi suddenly opened, and a large number of people rushed out with smiles on their faces. "What are they doing?" someone said in shock. "They are not here to welcome us." In fact, they guessed right. These people really came to welcome them. The people ran over and hugged the stunned soldiers. Many soldiers were moved to tears by this scene. Even Sulla was no exception. It had been 4 years. He led a large army on an expedition, but his retreat was cut off by Marius and Cinna, and they even sent troops to attack him. He couldn't sleep peacefully for countless days and nights. After seeing this scene today, he could no longer hold back his tears. "I declare in the name of Sulla that Brindisi will be tax-free forever from now on." Sulla drew his dagger and said loudly. Chapter 78 Dragon City. After learning the news, the people of Brindisi cheered. Standing in the crowd, watching Sulla's army enter the city happily, Valens looked unbelievable. How did Levi judge that Sulla would land here, and asked him to wait for Sulla here a long time ago? Could he have the ability to predict the future? It's just unlikely. He stopped thinking about some things that he couldn't figure out. When he thought of Levi's decision, his brows were furrowed into a river. Is it really good for the master to decide to surrender to Sulla so quickly? Valens did not go to see Sulla immediately, but quietly waited for Sulla to send someone to the door. He always kept in mind the instructions of the master of the house. As a human being, sometimes you have to be reserved. If you take the initiative to ask for surrender, people may suspect that you have any bad intentions. The official residence of the Brindisi municipal governor has become Sulla's temporary residence. Sulla found the noble municipal governor of Brindisi. There are generally 2 municipal governors in the autonomous cities and colonies of Rome. Some even had more, such as a 3-person committee, one of which was a noble alderman, who was appointed by aristocrats. They could sit on ivory-studded chairs and were sometimes called ivory-seat aldermen. Another type was a civilian alderman, who was mostly appointed by civilians. This type of alderman was often not as high-ranking as the ivory-seat alderman. After listening to the report of this alderman, Sulla had a preliminary understanding of the situation in Brindisi. Since Brindisi was a very important port, many knights or nobles had industries here. At present, he only had 40,000 troops, 5,000 of which were Greek mercenaries. It was impossible to defeat Rome with this strength. Although Sulla was dead, Rome's military strength was not damaged. In addition to the strong support of the new citizens, Samnites and Lucanians, his chances of winning were actually very low. He had to unite all the forces that could be united, and these knights and nobles were the ones that had to be won over. He had always been a staunch aristocrat, and one of the shops caught his attention. Levi's sugar shop, the Levi of Capua. Sulla said thoughtfully. Yes, I didn't expect you to have heard of this name too, the alderman said. Sulla smiled slightly. Although Levi's execution of the administrator of Capua and the governor of Campania caused a great sensation in the local area, it was not worth mentioning in the whole country or even the entire Mediterranean. Sulla knew him, so he naturally had his own channels. How could I not have heard of such an outstanding young man? Sulla said. What made him most jealous were Levi's 2 legions. These were his private legions and did not have to obey the command of Rome at all. Send someone to contact the people in that store and tell them that I want to ask them to discuss something. Remember to be polite. Sulla said. Yes, sir. A messenger beside him said immediately. Not long after, Valens followed the messenger to the mansion. Valens met General Sulla. Valens said with a smile. Who are you to Levi? Sulla asked with a pleasant face. I am the personal slave of Lucius Pausius Levi, the patriarch of the Capua Levi family. I run the business in Brindisi under the order of my master. Valens said. Personal slave. Sulla's heart moved. A personal slave meant an absolute confidant. Why did Levi send his personal slave here? This should be just a coincidence. Your master is really young and promising. He has built such a big family business at such a young age. I admire him very much. Sulla showed the most friendly smile, and there was no majesty of a consul at all. I don't know why General Sulla called me here, Valens asked. I think you have understood the current situation. I plan to attack Rome. I hope your master can help me. As long as he is willing to help me, I am willing to give him a lot of things, whether it is money or power and status. Sulla said directly to the point. The most important thing is that he didn't think that Valens, a slave, had any qualifications for him to be euphemistic. Valens hesitated. If Levi was here, he would definitely praise him for his movie star style. Sulla's men wanted to kill him, and Capua also made things difficult for him. Doesn't he want revenge? Sulla said. The governor of Capua and the governor of Campania have paid the price for their mistakes, and those things are over. Valens said. What you said makes sense, but Sulla is definitely not someone who will just give up. I wonder what your master likes the most, Sulla asked. Money, land, and real estate, Valens said with a smile, and Sulla really took the bait. Sulla smiled. As long as he had a preference, he was afraid of saints who liked everything. As long as your master is willing to help me, I can give him 20 million dinars and a lot of land and real estate after the matter is completed. I can let him take 10 of the sinner's real estate. Sulla said. Anyway, It was just empty talk, and Sulla made promises casually. If he really succeeded, he could also use the enemy's property to fulfill these promises, and he would not lose anything anyway. Valens took a breath of cold air. 20 million dinars. This is really an astonishing figure, plus the land and real estate. It would be even more. I will pass these words to the master. Valens said. Then please, I will wait for your good news, Sulla said, and after Valens left, a trace of viciousness appeared in his eyes. Levi's 2 legions were what he must get. If Levi did not agree, then he would try to spread rumors that Levi and he were in collusion, and try every means to force him to agree. Half a year later, the biggest change in Capua was the emergence of a new city outside Capua, which was a small city belonging to Levi. Levi bought 6,000 prisoners of war in one fell swoop and became a famous slave owner in the whole of Rome. Many people strongly opposed Levi's purchase of so many slaves because they believed that buying so many slaves would have an impact on the population structure of Capua. But Levi ignored it because he knew what was going to happen. He was very tight on time and had no time to develop slowly. He sent most of them to the quarry, let them mine and process stones, and then transport them back to Capua. The other part built a city in Levi's manner. Due to the addition of a large number of slaves, Levi's city construction speed became very fast. The original inner city was completely improved, and the outer city was also built at a very fast speed. 2 walls and part of the 3rd wall had been built. Inside the walls, military camps and residential areas were built. The residents in these living areas were all the families of the guards or slaves. In addition, there were large tracts of open space where vegetables and other crops were planted. Looking at the city, Levi was full of pride. Thank you very much for the reward from Dongfang Yimelin and King Zikong. Chapter 79, Men Suffering. In my previous life, I couldn't even imagine owning a castle, but now I own a small city. Of course, this is built on the hard work of thousands of slaves. Today, Capua is bustling with people, and a large number of nobles have come to Levi's manor. No, it's Dragon City, which is the name Levi gave to the new city, because today is Levi's birthday and the day he comes of age. Ha ha ha, Levi, today you finally come of age. This is my gift, I hope you like it, little Tullius said with a big laugh, and then handed the gift to a slave wearing strange black clothes. This kind of clothes looks weird and beautiful, with a forked slit on the back, like a swallow's tail. If people in later generations see this kind of clothes, they will definitely recognize it. This is a tuxedo. One by one, the male slaves wore tuxedos, with red bow ties around their necks and white shirts inside, and kept walking in the manor, with indescribable handsomeness. Thank you, come in with me. Levi laughed and hugged him. Is this the new clothes you designed? Little Tullius pointed at the slave and asked. Yes, this is called a tuxedo, which I designed recently. Levi said with a smile. It looks very good. Little Tullius said. He was not surprised by this kind of thing. Levi often designed all kinds of clothes, and he even opened chain clothing stores all over Rome, which caused a wave of fashion in Rome. He was a well-known design master. Where is your father? Levi asked. He is sick again, so I can only come on his behalf. It's a pity. Please send my most sincere blessings later. Thank you. Entering a garden, there were neatly arranged tables in the garden, and various snacks, fruits and wines were placed on the tables. Some people were drinking around those tables, and their voices were loud, which seemed a bit out of control. This made Tullius a little confused, which was really a bit rude. Tullius, come and taste it? Levi's wine is really great. At this time, Sykes said. His face was red, and he looked like he was drunk. Sykes, are you drunk? Tullius said in surprise. He remembered that Sykes could drink a lot. How could he get drunk so quickly? The party hadn't even started yet. I'm not drunk. How could I be drunk? Levi, come and have a few drinks too. Sykes waved his hand, patted Levi on the shoulder, and then said drunkenly, I want to tell you something. Your wine is so good. Sell it to me at a low price. I'll ship it to Egypt and it will definitely sell for a good price. No problem. I'll have someone talk to you later. Levi said with a smile. He always accepted anyone who wanted to do business with him. Tullius smelled an unusually strong aroma of wine at this time. This aroma was completely different from ordinary wine and was much stronger than wine. Tullius picked up a glass and poured a glass into it. The color of the wine was amber, and at the same time, an extremely strong smell of wine came to his face. Tullius drank the wine in one gulp, and a special fragrance filled his taste buds. Good wine, really good wine. What kind of wine is this? It's like the essence of wine. And it tastes so good. Tullius couldn't help but praise. No wonder Sykes said this wine is good. It really has different reactions. I named it brandy, also called the soul of wine. It tastes fragrant and mellow. There are two other wines, called whiskey and rum. Levi said, the so-called soul of wine is actually grape brandy. Since sugar cannot be made in winter, Levi asked the slaves to distill various wines and brew new wine. Sulla will return to Greece soon, and the war is about to break out. In order to reduce the death rate of the guards, it is time for various distilled wines to be born. Brandy and rum can only be said to be incidental. Since Westerners have a long wine culture, grape brandy is his main product. Rum is a distilled honey wine, which is also a very popular wine in the West. Soul of wine, a good name, Tullius said. He tasted another glass of other wine and praised it repeatedly. It is indeed a good wine. Then I will not be polite. After that, he drank with Sykes and others. Looking at Tullius, who was laughing and scolding, he never thought that he had this side. But the alcohol content of these wines is very high, which is not comparable to light wine. I hope they don't get drunk. Lucius Scilius, the administrator of Capua, has arrived. At this time, the receptionist shouted loudly. Levi apologized and left here to greet the administrator of Capua. Geta did not choose to be an administrator after all, but another senior guard of the Levi family took over. Gilius had served as the guard of the Levi family a long time ago. His personality was a bit reckless, but what Levi valued most was that this person was obedient and reliable to use. Soon he saw Gilius and his family with a full beard. Even as an administrator, Gilius still respected Levi very much. As long as Levi ordered something, he would complete it as soon as possible. He knew that Levi could push him to the position of administrator, but he could also push him down. His predecessor was the best example. Master, congratulations on your coming of age, Gilius said. I've told you so many times, don't call me master anymore. It's not good for your future development, Levi said. Since Gilius became the administrator of Capua, Levi officially announced that he was no longer a retainer of the Levi family, but Gilius still regarded himself as a retainer of Levi. I have to say that this is actually a very smart guy. Gilius introduced his son to Levi. This is a very likable guy, just like a little boy. He was a little restrained in front of Levi, but he was teased by Levi before he burst into laughter. Former Capua administrator Gaius Cornelius Cerobio and his wife are here. Soon Cerobio and Sempronia came to him. Cerobio was thinner than before, like a stick, and he would fall down if blown. On the contrary, Sempronia was radiant and beautiful. However, Levi had heard some bad rumors about Sempronia. Maybe all nobles were like that. Cerobio, you've lost weight again. Levi walked up to Cerobio and said. Hearing this, Cerobio was about to cry. No one could stand being squeezed every night. You don't understand the suffering of men. The two hugged each other like good friends, and Levi patted Cerobio's shoulder hard. Sempronia walked up to Levi and stretched out her right hand. Hello, congratulations on your official adulthood. After saying that, she licked her tempting red lips, causing a group of people around her to swallow hard. Chapter 80 Adulthood. Welcome. Levi held her hand. He pulled his hand away calmly, and then walked in with them. More and more guests came here, and basically all the famous families in Capua came here. Even some Roman elders sent representatives here. Their cooperation last time was very pleasant, and many people attached great importance to Levi. The whole manor was full of guests, and there was no ordinary person coming and going. All of them were rich or noble. Cerobio played the role of the butler, and did not care whether this would damage his image as a Capua elder, and made the atmosphere of the whole banquet very warm. Under the stimulation of the new wine, all the guests turned into drunkards and loved these new wines very much. Levi also asked them to take some home for their elders to drink. This was the best opportunity to build a brand. as long as it was recognized by the nobles and knights, the high and brand image would be established. Those guests overestimated their alcohol tolerance, and many of them were completely drunk, and finally had to be carried back by their own slaves. Cerebio said he was not drunk, and even acted crazy, and was finally taken back by Sempronia. After sending everyone away, Levi hurried back to his bedroom. "Master, Valens sent a message that Sulla's army landed in Brindisi." Cybele said, "Is it finally here?" Levi said. He took and opened the wax ball. There were some strange characters inside, which were actually Chinese characters in later generations. Levi made them to convey messages, so that even if someone intercepted them, they would not be able to understand them. After reading it, Levi smiled slightly. Valens did a good job, and Sulla really took the bait. And Sulla's conditions were very good, and he could agree to them. Notify all grain stores to stop selling grain to the outside world, and also purchase grain, weapons and armor, iron ingots and medicinal materials with all their strength. Levi said, "Also, let all of the slaves in the quarry come back, and there is no need to continue quarrying." The gap in the outer city wall was too large and it could not be completed in a short time, so Levi had given up the idea of completing this project. Sulla's arrival was like a storm that swept through Rome and even the Mediterranean. Sulla gave a speech in Brindisi, explaining his attitude towards the new citizens. He sent a large number of envoys to persuade the dignitaries and powerful people in various places, hoping to gain their support. Everywhere was in turmoil. Pompey in Persylon was overjoyed when he heard the news. He called his slave Demetrius. "Quick, contact our people and prepare for the uprising." In a cave in Spain, Crassus stood up excitedly. "Let's go back to Rome." Chapter 81 Hadrianus. In a military camp in Africa, an old man smiled. He's finally back. Levi was also making final preparations for this. He decided to draw deputy military tribunes, deputy centurions and deputy decapitations from the first legion, and then organize all the slaves and gladiators into a new legion. A new legion was taking shape at a speed visible to the naked eye. These slaves had been soldiers before, and their foundation was very good. In addition, they were equipped with a large number of grassroots officers. With a little training, they could become a combat-capable legion. "How are the slaves feeling?" Levi asked. "They are all very happy, since they have gained their freedom. They are grateful to you, the master of the family," Geta said. Just like before, Levi gave them freedom, but asked them to serve him for 10 years in return. However, he would only pay a very low salary, which would greatly reduce his expenses. "You know, it is quite a laborious thing to support 2 legions, not to mention that there is a war now, and the cost is even more amazing." Even so, the slaves were still ecstatic. As Roman slaves, it was too difficult to become free slaves. A kind existence like Levi is simply unique. "That's good," Levi said. Now his biggest headache is money, because his expenses are really too high. The weapons and armors enough for 3 legions add up to nearly 2.5 million dinars, plus the construction of the new city and paying their salaries, all of which make Levi's wallet more and more empty. Although he has acquired a lot of food and weapons, as long as he sells them, he will make a lot of money, but in troubled times, these are the most valuable things, and Levi's reluctant to sell them. It seems that he has to find a way to increase the sales of wine and sugar. There is another thing. The Senate has granted the consuls the right to forcibly recruit citizens from all over the country. "What do you think I should do if Nobanus forcibly recruits my legion?" Levi said. Although Roman citizens have the right not to serve after Marius's reform, once the Senate authorizes it, Roman officials can still forcibly recruit citizens into the army. Just like when Pompey went on an expedition to pirates in later generations, the Senate gave Pompey enormous power. The consul who led the troops to Capuaa this time was Nobanus. Last time when Nobanus was elected, he asked for his help but was rejected. This was embarrassing. Geta was also a little worried. What if Nobanus used their legion as cannon fodder? "We have to strive for a good condition anyway," Levi said. Geta also agreed with him, such as letting him be a deputy general or something. As the Levi family became stronger, his desire to make achievements was also rising. Recently, The Senate of Capua discussed the city defense. Cerobio proposed that you be the city defense officer and be responsible for all city defense affairs. Because he didn't know what you meant, this resolution was not passed. My idea is to agree to his proposal, so that the 3 legions are still under your command. Gaeta said. This is a good idea, Levi said with his eyes lit up. What he wanted to do was to cooperate with Sulla to take Capua. Wouldn't it be like sending a chicken to the fox's den to let him be the city defense officer? And if you want to recruit my people to take charge of the city defense, you have to pay for their salaries, which will save a lot of money. Levi suddenly realized that his vision was too narrow. As a big slave owner and capitalist, he should try to subsidize himself with the country's money. Yes, let's do it, Levi said. In addition, I have an idea. I wonder if I can be a deputy general. As long as I am a deputy general, I will definitely be able to defeat Sulla. Gaeta was a little embarrassed at first. After all, it is always bad to ask for an official position, but he soon got used to it and began to brag about himself desperately, hoping to get Levi's support. Cough. Cough. Levi suddenly coughed desperately. Master, what's wrong with you? Gaeta asked. Nothing. I'm tired, Levi said helplessly. It was his fault. After all, there were many people talking, and he didn't tell anyone many things. For example, he planned to surrender to Sulla, only he and Valens knew about it, and even Julia didn't know. Just tell me if you have anything, maybe I can help, Gaeta said eagerly. Levi looked at him speechlessly. Can I say get out of the way? At this moment, a slave came in. Report to the master, Valens is back. Hearing this, Levi's eyes lit up. Let him in quickly, Levi said. I haven't seen Valens for a long time. Is it because our store is suppressed by Sulla that he comes back at this time? Gaeta began to imagine. Levi's hand holding the water cup was shaking, and his forehead was twisted into a character. Gaeta, aren't you busy? No, I've finished what I should be busy with. Then lead the 3rd Legion to a 3 Roman mile fully armed cross-country race. 1 Roman mile is 1,480 meters, and you run with me. Why? Gaeta was speechless. It would be fine if the soldiers ran, but why did he have to run with them? Because this is an order, Levi said. Gaeta immediately understood that he must have said something wrong and offended the owner of the family. Forget it, I won't bother with the owner. Gaeta generously forgave Levi, and then went on an armed cross-country race with the 3rd Legion. Not long after, Valens came in with 4 people. Long time no see, Valens, Levi said with a smile, and then Valens hugged each other. They are, Levi said, looking at the people behind Valens. Hadrianus, the centurion of Sulla's personal guard, greets the respected Levi. A big man with a beard came out and said. Although Levi was very young, he did not dare to underestimate Levi. A person can build a small city by himself, and even have 2 large legions. This is definitely not something that ordinary people can do. They are sent by Sulla to contact us and coordinate our actions. Valens winked at Levi and said. Levi nodded. I see, everyone has worked hard, please take a seat. No, our current identity is Valens's men. It is not appropriate to be discovered like this, Hadrianus said. Levi nodded. It seems that Sulla sent a reliable person. I haven't told my men a lot of things yet. You know that many people are talkative. If something gets out, it will be troublesome. When your army arrives, I will abide by our agreement, Levi said. We understand, Hadrianus smiled. Capua's geographical location is extremely important. The Romans like to build various roads. The ancient Romans already used volcanic ash to make cement to build roads for rapid deployment of troops. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Nobanus. One of the most important roads is the Appian Way, which runs from Rome to the south of Rome. Capua is an important node of the Appian Way, which can lead directly to Rome. Moreover, it is a fortified city, and it is very difficult to capture Capua. Historically, Sulla did not capture Capua. After hearing Levi's promise in person, Hadrianus's worries were also half relieved. Will your army not come to Capua? If you can get to Capua now, we can just join forces, Levi said. This. Hadrianus looked embarrassed. Sulla is weak now and cannot compare with the strong strength of Rome, and he doesn't trust Levi. What if Levi and Rome make dumplings? We are uniting many people who are dissatisfied with Rome, so we are unable to carry out military operations, Hadrianus said very tactfully. Levi nodded, told them something, and Valens took them down. From now on, he is completely on Sulla's boat. Outside the city of Capua, a large army was winding forward. The new consul, Nobanus, had a solemn expression on his face. Sulla's record in Greece was amazing, and he was worthy of being a famous general of the time. Moreover, Sulla performed well in the fight against the invasion of the Germanic tribes, even surpassing Marius, who served as consul for 7 times. That was Marius, and some people called him one of the 3 greatest people since the founding of Rome, which made him feel that this mission was difficult. However, he and Scipio were far more powerful than Sulla together. If Livy's 3 legions were added, he would even be sure to defeat Sulla alone and enjoy the honor of defeating Sulla alone. When Nobanus thought of this, he was extremely eager. But the premise was that he must get the command of Livy's 3 legions. It didn't take long for them to arrive outside the city of Capua. Seeing the people coming out of the city to greet him, Nobanus showed a strange smile on his face, because he found Cerobio among the crowd and Livy standing at the front of the group. Is that Livy? He looks very young. To this day, he still remembers the back of Cerobio hugging the woman and leaving. Maybe Cerobio doesn't remember the incident at all, but he still remembers it deeply. That was when he needed help the most, but Cerobio ignored him. Thinking of this, a trace of anger appeared in his eyes. Levi stretched out his right hand with a smile on his face. Dear consul, hello. But soon the smile froze on his face, because Nobanus directly passed him, Cerobio and others, and shook hands with the people on the other side. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. What's the matter with the consul? Why did he do this to Levi? Those who are mixed in the officialdom are people with particularly strong associative abilities. Some people have already started to make up their minds. The biggest possibility is that Levi offended Nobanus because he supported Scipio. This conjecture is actually not far from the fact. As for not seeing it clearly, it is impossible. Levi's face kept changing. What does he mean? Is he going to give himself a warning? So Livius stood aside with his arms folded, watching his performance. Cerobio walked up to him and said indignantly, "Is he blind? He didn't even shake hands with you. Did you offend him when you went to Rome?" Livius asked. He and Nobanus had no grudges in the past and in the present, so he shouldn't treat him like this. It's impossible. I haven't had any contact with him at all. You asked me to support Scipio at the beginning, and I couldn't support him. Is it because we support Scipio? Cerobio said. Livius thought about it, and it might be the reason. Everyone wants to be consul. Why do you support him but not me? But he didn't know that he was completely fooled by Cerobio. When he thought of the secret that Gutta told him at the beginning, he was so angry. He didn't expect that he was so good to Scipio, but he was still sold out by him and Nias. But he still decided to support Scipio to become consul, because he wanted to nail Scipio to the pillar of shame in history. Scipio's performance in the war with Sulla was extremely shameful. His subordinates actually abandoned him and surrendered directly to Sulla. This was simply shocking. He was the head of the Ares family, so Levi didn't mind letting him become consul. To hate someone is not only to kill him, but also to destroy what he values most. He wanted to make the Ares family ashamed because of him. After getting to know those people, Nobanus asked, "I heard that there is a famous young knight named Levi in Capua. I wonder who Levi is?" "Respected consul, I am," Levi said with a smile, but he didn't move after that, and looked at Nobanus quietly. Ha 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 ha. Nobanus laughed for a long time and saw that Levi still didn't move, so he had to walk over with a dark face, forced a smile, shook Levi's hand and said, "I am familiar with your name in Rome. You are really a young hero." "No, it's all friends who flatter you," Levi said with a smile. "This is Cerobio, the former administrator of Capua." Someone next to him introduced him. "I have heard of your name in Rome, and many Roman ladies have praised you highly," Nobanus said calmly. How is this possible? Sarabeo said with a red face. Apart from Sempronia, he had no deep contact with those Roman ladies. Levi looked at him calmly. Could this guy be a master of flowers? Nobanus smiled proudly, got to know everyone, and then attended the banquet held by Capua to welcome him. After the banquet, Nobanus summoned Valerii Ruthless, the governor of Campania, to his residence. He was Capo's confidant and the person that Nobanus believed Capo could trust the most, because one of Capo's purposes in placing him was to contain Levi. After listening to Ruthless' introduction to Capua, Nobanus frowned. You said that the defense of Capua was taken over by Levi. Yes, just a few days ago, the Senate of Capua passed a motion to appoint Levi as the defense officer of Capua, responsible for all defense affairs of Capua. Not only did they recruit Levi's 2 legions as the defense force of Capua, but they also authorized him to form the 3rd Legion of Capua to protect the safety of Capua and Dragon City. Now Levi is very powerful in Capua and controls almost everything in Capua. Relentless said. Where is Dragon City? Nobanus asked with a frown. It's the small town that Levi built. Relentless said, and Levi's people are very domineering. They don't allow my people to get close to the city wall at all. Thank you very much for the tips from Book Friends 1605130849222273 and stay up late to eat melon seeds. Chapter 83, Forced Conscription. Nobanus looked at him in shock. Are you sure you are right? You are the governor of Campania, but you can't even get close to the city wall. Relentless was also very aggrieved. He didn't want this to happen. If it was in other places, he would be a powerful official, but this is Capua. His predecessor's fate is there. Can he not be careful? He usually behaves well and never gives Levi a chance to get anything on him. He is too arrogant. I will talk to Levi later, Nobanus said. This made him more determined to recruit Levi's 3 legions no matter what. He was not at ease with these troops in Levi's hands, and he had to control them himself. What did you say? You want to recruit my 3 legions? Levi said angrily in Nobanus's temporary residence. He didn't expect that after so much tolerance, self-righteousness, the thing he was most worried about still happened. Did Nobanus deliberately go against him? Yes, I have a certain advantage over Sulla, but it is not great. In order to defeat Sulla quickly, I need the troops you have on hand. Nobanus said slowly. I don't think it's necessary to do this. As long as you join forces with Scipio, I think you will be able to defeat Sulla easily, Levi said. At present, Nobanus has 7 legions, and with Scipio's 8 legions, it is simply a crushing defeat against Sulla. There is no need for this. I can defeat Sulla with your troops, Nobanus said. Levi was slightly startled, but soon understood Nobanus's idea. He wanted to have the honor of defeating Sulla alone. Sulla had made great military achievements throughout his life, and he was not much inferior to Marius. But once he joined forces with Scipio, all the glory would be monopolized by Scipio. After all, Scipio was the heir of the famous god of war family, who was Nobanus. He was also worthy of competing with Scipio for the honor of defeating Sulla. I object. This is reckless. There are more reliable ways. Why take risks? Levi said. I am the Roman consul. The Roman Senate authorizes me to recruit all Roman citizens, Nobanus said. Levi looked at him coldly. This was too shameless. He directly used the Senate's order to pressure others. In fact, I think there is a lot of room for cooperation. As long as you don't recruit my legions, I will fully support you next time you want to be a consul or censor, Levi said. Nobanus' eyes flashed. To be honest, he was a little tempted. Levi's strength was still very strong, but the temptation of defeating Sulla was even greater. As long as Sulla was defeated, he, Nobanus, would be famous in the Mediterranean. Even without Levi's support, he could be easily elected as consul, just like when Marius defeated Jugurtha and Scipio defeated Hannibal. I am very sorry. As a Roman consul, I must consider the interests of Rome, Nobanus said apologetically. Damn, he said it like a saint. Levi cursed in his heart, but he really couldn't do anything about him. I hope to leave at least 1 legion in Capua. My industry is here, and I must let them protect my industry. This is my bottom line, Levi said. 1 battalion is enough. Nobanus thought for a while and said, At least 1 legion. This is my bottom line. Levi did not give in. 1 legion is too much. I cannot agree. And there are Capua garrisons here. I can't think of anyone who can snatch the white sugar formula from so many people, Nobanus said. Levi looked at him viciously, and the anger in his heart could no longer be suppressed. This was not taking him seriously at all. The last time it was the Capua garrison that tried to steal his white sugar formula. Nobanus smiled in response. He didn't believe that Levi dared to disobey his and the Senate's orders. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Levi said angrily. Nobanus smiled and said, "I hope you can understand my difficulties." "Difficult your mother be. I will make you regret it," Levi roared in his heart. But his face was calm. "In this case, I obey the order of the Senate. By the way, I have something else to do, so I'll take my leave first." After saying that, he turned around and left. Nobanus didn't expect him to agree so easily. He is indeed a child. His legs become weak when he meets the consul, Nobanus thought with contempt. In the dark night, a palace in Capua was brightly lit. Levi's face was solemn. The military tribunes, centurions and retainers below did not dare to speak. They had not seen Levi like this for a long time. One by one, senior officers came to the hall and sat down in their seats. After seeing that everyone was gathered, the meeting was finally held. "Just today, the consul called me over and said that he would recruit our legion," Levi said. His words immediately attracted everyone's attention. After all, this was a matter related to all of them. He is going to transfer our legions to attack Sulla, and he plans to place his own people in the legions. Our military tribunes and senior centurions will be replaced by those Roman nobles, Livius said. Hearing this, the people below immediately became agitated. It was clear that every consul would be followed by a large number of nobles when he went to war. This was not only an opportunity to earn military merit, but also a chance to get experience and money. In the past, in Rome, people were prohibited from entering politics without military experience. They often occupied the best positions, such as Caesar the Great, who obtained the position of military tribune when he first joined the army. The military tribunes and chief centurions under Livius were all civilians. How could they compete with those nobles? How can this be? Why do they do this? Those damn nobles. Too much. Those bastards. Most warriors were vulgar in character. After Livius's instigation, they were soon filled with righteous indignation and began to greet Nobanus and those nobles. As for the instructors, Livius showed a trace of pity in his eyes. Well, there was no such organization in the Roman army. All dismissed. Although they were mentally prepared, the retainers were still shocked when they heard this. This is really too much. Fuck this son of a bitch. Seeing the anger of the crowd, Levi was very satisfied. This was what he wanted to see. He took a sip of wine leisurely, and then said, "Nobanus treated us like this. Are we just going to let Nobanus do whatever he wants? Of course not. I think we might as well rebel. At worst, we can go to Sulla." Someone stood up and said, Chapter 84 Evacuation. "Yes, he doesn't value us, so we will go to Sulla." Cough. Cough. "Why did you all speak the truth?" Levi signaled everyone to be quiet, and they finally calmed down. "It's a bit too radical to join Sulla, but the necessary conditions must still be fought for. My bottom line is that at least 1 legion must stay in Capua, and everyone's position cannot be changed, and the legion must be used as a whole, and cannot be split up and used as cannon fodder. Do you agree with these conditions?" Levi said. "The head of the family is wise." "Agree. I agree too." The people below agreed one after another. No one wanted to be cannon fodder, and they all valued their positions very much and didn't want to be replaced by others. "In this case, then everyone obeys my orders. Tonight, the military camp is closed, and no one is allowed to go out. Those who disobey the order will be executed. Tomorrow morning, the entire army will withdraw to Longcheng. Unless Nobanus agrees to our conditions, we will not help each other," Levi said. After hearing Levi's words, everyone hesitated for a while, but soon agreed. "Since Nobanus is unkind, don't blame them for being unjust." Levi had also thought about the consequences of doing so. In this day and age, soldiers are the boss. As long as they retreated to Dragon City, It would be impossible for Nobanus to capture it with his strength, because Levi had prepared a large number of steel swords. Once 2 legions were equipped with steel swords, it would be possible to sweep at least 6 Roman legions. With Nobanus's strength, he might not be his opponent. Moreover, as the local snake of Capua, Levi also prepared some surprises for Nobanus, hoping that he would like them. The next morning, the gates of Capua were wide open. A large number of soldiers were fully armed and lined up in neat rows to go out of the city. Their movements immediately attracted the attention of many people. A centurion recognized the family emblem on their armor and asked a person in the team, "What are you going to do?" "Back to Dragon City," the man said. "Dragon City?" The centurion didn't know what this meant, but someone knew, so they quickly informed Nobanus of the matter, and when Nobanus learned the news, he was shocked. What is Levi going to do? Is he going to rebel? But he felt that this was not the case, because if he was going to rebel, he would not withdraw from the city of Capua. Nobanus could no longer sit still. He wanted to ask Levi for clarification, so he gathered some soldiers and immediately rode towards Levi's mansion. Stop! When they came to a road, they suddenly found a roadblock in front of them. A large number of soldiers blocked the place. A centurion said to them, "This is the team of Roman consul Nobanus. Who are you and why are you blocking this place?" A guard stepped forward and asked, "I am Aeneas, the military tribune of the 2nd Legion of Capua." A spy sent by Sulla was found in front. Under the order of Lord Levi, the scene is blocked to capture the spy. No one is allowed to enter. Those who disobey the order will be executed, Aeneas said loudly. Nobanus snorted coldly. What about catching a spy? It was just an excuse. How dare this little trick show up in front of him? He stepped forward and said loudly, "In the name of the Roman consul, I order you to remove the roadblocks and make way." Looking at Nobanus, who was wearing a purple-rimmed robe, Aeneas took a deep breath, then mustered up his courage and said, "Military orders are as heavy as mountains. In order to avoid letting the spies sent by Sulla escape, please forgive me for not obeying the consul's orders." Hearing this, Nobanus was furious. A small military tribune dared to oppose his orders. His men also shouted. They were really rebellious, and they didn't even listen to the consul's orders. "Make way immediately, otherwise I will execute you in the name of the Roman consul," Nobanus said loudly. Aeneas was embarrassed for a while, but thought of Livy's order and his oath. "Blow the horn," Aeneas said to a bugler beside him. The bugler immediately blew the curved bugle, and the melodious bugle sounded. Not long after, a large number of footsteps came from all around. More and more soldiers gathered here, and then lined up behind this sentry to form a battle formation. Several centurions, instructors, and political instructors also came at the same time. Nobanus's face was livid. "What do you mean? Whoever crosses the white line will die." At this time, a retainer said loudly. He was the political instructor of this brigade, very loyal to Livius, and was responsible for monitoring the military tribune. Once the military tribune did not carry out Livius's order, he had the right to take down the military tribune on the spot and replace him. Livius would never send anyone to such an important task. Of course, all of them were the most loyal people. Aeneas waved his hand, and 60 crossbowmen came forward. They were divided into 6 rows, each with 10 people. The first row squatted, and the second row stood, all ready to shoot. Seeing this, Nobanus was so angry that he was incoherent. Very good. Very good. These people were really bold, and they dared to show their crossbows in front of them. "I want to see how powerful you are." At this time, a guard said, and then he walked forward with a shield. Nobanus frowned slightly. This was a Roman nobleman who was forced to come here to gain military merit, but to step out of the line without his consent was too disrespectful to military discipline. However, Nobanus did not stop them. He wanted to see if they really dared to shoot arrows. Seeing that the guard was about to cross the white line, the military tribune hesitated for a moment and ordered, "Shoot." 20 arrows shot at the guard like locusts. These arrows hit the shield, and some even pierced his hand, connecting his hand to the shield. The guard wailed in pain and was shocked at the same time. How could this be possible? How could they shoot arrows at him in front of the consul? Ha ha ha. Really good. Really courageous. Nobanus laughed in anger, and then said, Everyone, prepare the tortoise shell formation, move forward. His guards immediately took action and formed the most classic Roman tortoise shell formation. The front ones held up their shields, and the ones at the back raised their shields above their heads, forming a shield formation. Aeneas and others' faces changed slightly. They did not expect Nobanus to be so determined. "Don't hesitate anymore," the instructor said at this time, looking at his cold eyes. Aeneas knew he had no choice. "Shoot," Aeneas said. The crossbowmen immediately started shooting arrows, and waves of arrows shot at the guards. Although all of them were blocked by the shields, they also caused damage to them. Many soldiers' hands were pierced by arrows and then connected to the shields. Chapter 85 Food. Nobanus looked at Aeneas fiercely, and he vowed to kill this man. When they advanced to 50 yards, the crossbowmen immediately retreated, revealing the soldiers behind them. The soldiers in the front row took out lead balls and prepared to throw them. The soldiers in the back took out javelins and aimed at the front. The guards were scared. "Are they serious? Lead balls and javelins are not bows and arrows. If they are hit, they may die." The speed of the guards immediately slowed down, which made Nobanus even more angry. Seeing that there would be a large number of casualties, Nobanus finally made up his mind. "Stop moving forward," Nobanus said. He already understood the determination of the people in front of him, so there was no need to fight anymore. His guards immediately stopped moving forward, and their movements were uniform. "Retreat," Nobanus said. After receiving Nobanus' order, the tortoise formation began to retreat slowly. Aeneas and others also breathed a sigh of relief, and they were still very happy that they didn't have to fight them. "I'll remember you. I'll ask Levi for an explanation later," Nobanus said, and then left with his guards. Aeneas couldn't help but shudder. It was not a good thing to be remembered by the Roman consul. He could only pray in his heart that Levi could withstand his pressure and not hand him over. The conflict between Levi and Nobanus spread throughout Capua like the wind, and both nobles and civilians were terrified. There was a bloody conflict between Levi and Nobanus, so would there be a war between them? Some timid nobles have even decided to flee Capua. In the manner of the Tullius family, Tullius said to old Tullius with some fear, "What should we do? Do we still have to do what Levi said?" He didn't understand Levi. "Why are you arguing with the consul again? Can't you be quiet? This will put a lot of pressure on them." Cough. Cough. Old Tullius coughed hard. His face became molder, and his face was so sallow that he looked like he would die at any time. "Just do what he says. We are not from the same family anyway, so just follow the crowd," old Tullius said. Tullius nodded helplessly and agreed. After Tullius left, old Tullius's face became even gloomier. He seemed to have seen the bloody storm in Capua. He hoped that the Tullius family could get through this hurdle safely. Old Aeneas left home with a bag and came to a grain store not far away. This is a grain store opened by the Levi family. There are various discounts for the relatives of the guests, so old Aeneas likes to come here very much. Today he just came a little late and found that there were already crowds of people here. This made him sigh. It seems that it is difficult to buy food today. Since Sulla came to Brindisi, the price of food in Capua has been rising sharply, and now it has risen to 5 times the previous price. But the grain store in Capua still limits purchases. Each person can only buy 3 days of food for one person. This makes many Capua citizens miserable, and even live a life of hunger. But old Aeneas was still a good man. He had a rich son, and even if the price of grain rose, he could barely maintain his life. Why did the price of grain rise again today? How much did it rise? It rose to 7 times the previous price. Why did it rise so much? Who can afford such expensive grain? Do you still want to buy it? You will soon not be able to buy it even if you have money. The Roman army bought a lot of grain. Today, the grain store only sells 2,000 pounds of barley. Once it is sold, it will be gone. How can such a small amount of grain be enough to eat? That's right. Listening to the discussion among the people, old Aeneas was also very worried. Now he couldn't buy grain even if he had money. What should he do? Maybe he should find his son. He should have a way. Have you heard that Livy's army clashed with the consul's army today? I heard it too. It is said that many people were injured. Old Aeneas wanted to leave, but he couldn't move after hearing this. What happened? Old Ennius walked over and asked. You heard the bugle call this morning? The man said. I heard it. Old Ennius said. The man told what happened in the morning, and finally added, it is said that the conflict arose because the Archon wanted to deprive Knight Levi of his military power, and Levi wanted to lead his troops to leave Capua and go to Dragon City. If you ask me, the Archon is too much. Those 3 legions are all retainers of the Levi family. They usually spend so much money to support them, and now they want to deprive them of their military power. That's right. After all, Levi is a legendary figure in Capua, and the Capuans are still somewhat dissatisfied with the powerful Archon. Old Ennius sounded like a thunder in his mind, and he asked in a trembling voice, do you know how the Levi family's subordinates are doing? They all returned to Dragon City, and it is said that no one was injured. Hearing this, Old Ennius was relieved, but soon he was worried again. The Levi family had a conflict with the Archon. Will he be punished? Will his son be implicated? When he thought of this, Old Ennius could no longer sit still and decided to go to Dragon City in person. Not long after he left, there was a cry of surprise in the team. What did you say? The food is sold out. How come it's gone so quickly? I went to several stores and couldn't buy any food. What do you want us to eat? Hearing that there was no food, the crowd behind him immediately became agitated. Those grain stores either hoarded food or limited sales, causing the price of food to rise sharply. There were long queues in all the grain stores, but there were still many people who couldn't buy food every day. Some people were completely angry. The waiter who was surrounded by them almost cried. Can he be blamed for this? Everyone, please be quiet. We really have no more food. Why don't you go find the consul? He bought a lot of food from us. If it weren't for him, we would still have enough food. The waiter said. That's right, we have to find the consul. Someone in the crowd said, if the Roman army hadn't bought a lot of food, we would still be able to buy food, and the price of food wouldn't be so high. It's because they bought up all the food. Maybe the kind consul can sell us food at a fair price. Suddenly, there were more voices in the team. Some people felt that something was wrong. How could they sell it to them at a fair price? But when they thought of cheap food, all rationality was thrown out of their minds. Facing the upcoming war, everyone had one idea, that is, to desperately hoard food. Chapter 86 Intelligence Group. In wartime, food is sometimes as valuable as gold. Led by some people, several teams set out from various grain stores and headed for the consul's residence. Some people along the way joined the team after learning their purpose. Now that food prices are high, the money earned in a day is not enough to fill their stomachs. Maybe they can follow them to ask the consul for some food. In Nobleman's temporary residence, Levi was pointing at a map and introducing it. Dragon City is about 700 Roman steps long and wide, and the city is 3 Roman steps high. It is mainly made of stone. However, it only has 2 walls. The other part of the wall is composed of a blue brick wall and a 5-meter thick soil layer. It is easy to break through Dragon City, but we will suffer some casualties. And Dragon City also has an inner city. This inner city has been continuously reinforced and can accommodate at least 2 legions of troops in a short period of time. It is even more difficult to break through. Damn bastard. After hearing his words, Nobanus began to curse. Because of Levi's reckless behavior, he found himself forced into a corner. If he fought, not only Sulla would laugh himself out, but even Rome would question his ability. He didn't get rid of any enemy, but he got rid of his 3 legions first. But if he didn't punish Livius, he would not be willing. If everyone was like Livius, what dignity would he have as a consul, and how could he lead the army? He felt a little regretful, wondering if he was too impatient and forced Livius to do this. Levi closed his mouth and let Nobanus vent his anger. What do you think I should do? Nobanus said. What should you do? How would I know? Why not agree to his conditions temporarily, and then trick him over, and what to do next is our business. At this time, one of his lieutenants said, this was Brutus, who was cuckolded by Caesar in later generations, and then his son assassinated Caesar. Detain him. Hearing this, Nobanus was very tempted. Although this was a little dangerous and the consequences were very serious, it was much better than this situation. Good idea, let's do it this way, Nobanus said. At this moment, he suddenly heard a lot of noise coming from outside the official residence. "What happened?" Nobanus asked. At this moment, a soldier ran in. "Report to the consul." A large number of citizens suddenly gathered outside the door. "Why are they gathering here?" Nobanus asked. "It seems that the food in the city has been sold out, and they hope that the consul can help them solve this problem." "Food sold out? How is this possible?" Campania is the largest grain-producing area in Italy, and it is close to Sicily, a major grain-producing province in Rome, and Egyptian grain ships can land here at any time. If there is no food here, then other places will have to eat dirt. Nobanus' first impression was that it was impossible, and it was very likely that someone was going to make trouble. He first thought of Levi. "Is food in short supply here?" Nobanus asked. "It's not very tight, but the major grain stores have been limiting purchases during this period." Relentless said. "Purchase limit? What is this?" It is said that Levi proposed it to the major grain merchants. He said that he didn't have much grain, but he couldn't let the elders and villagers of Capua starve. He had to squeeze out some grain from his own hands anyway, but each person could only buy enough food for 3 days at a time. Relentless said. "What a hypocritical bastard." Nobanus said. He knew without investigation that this was definitely a good way to push up grain prices. He felt that he had seen through Levi's hypocritical and profiteer nature. "There are no natural disasters here. Why is the food so tight?" Nobanus was still a little puzzled. Relentless couldn't answer this. What he didn't know was that Levi absorbed a lot of grain through his grain store. Not only did he buy grain at a low price in Capua, but he also sent caravans to Sicily and Naples to buy grain, which directly led to the food shortage in Capua. And because of the rampant pirates in the Mediterranean, it was very difficult to transport Egyptian grain to Rome, not to mention Syria, another source of food, which had long been intercepted by Sulla. When they came here, Nobanus' army did not carry much food. After all, this was a grain-producing area. The army's food was supplied by Capua, and they did not expect such a thing to happen. Nobanus came to a balcony on the second floor of the official residence, and when he saw the consul appear, the people of Capua below cheered. Nobanus first waved to the people, and then gave a soothing speech. Every consul is an excellent orator. They have been educated in rhetoric since childhood and have been through various tests. A speech is as natural to them as eating and drinking. The mood of the masses was immediately appeased, but there were still people who said loudly, "Dear consul, can you lower the price of food and not limit the purchase? We don't have many requirements, only these two." Nobanus was full of bitterness. These two things were easy at ordinary times, but now it is extremely difficult to do them. But he still said with a cheerful face, "Please rest assured, I have decided to dispatch a fleet of Spanish grain ships. They will arrive in Naples soon and then transport them to Capua." "But we can't buy food today. Are we going to starve today?" someone shouted loudly. "Yes, when the Spanish fleet comes, we may have starved to death. It's all because your army bought up all the food." Someone followed up and made a noise, and Nobanus looked embarrassed. "Please rest assured, I will solve this problem tomorrow," Nobanus promised hurriedly. After getting Nobanus' promise, the crowd dispersed in twos and threes. What Nobanus didn't know was that some of them gathered in a tavern. This tavern was Levi's property, but few people knew about it. "Team leader, we did a good job today," a young man in a short coat and curly short hair said. "Not bad," a black-haired man said while holding a glass of brandy produced by the Levi family. This newly produced famous wine is extremely expensive. As soon as it was launched, it was crazily sought after by major families and was known as the soul of wine. The Sykes family couldn't wait to sell it to North Africa, and even the Tullius family bought some, intending to sell it to Greece and Asia. The identity of this black-haired man is very special. He is Morris, the leader of the intelligence team formed by Levi privately. In order to find out the spies who tried to steal the white sugar formula, after executing the administrator of Capua and the admiral of Campania, Levi specially formed an intelligence team for internal counter-espionage tasks. Chapter 87 Rumors. In addition, the intelligence group is also responsible for assassination, spying, inciting the masses to make trouble, etc. Levi provides the intelligence group with 20,000 dinars of funds every month. With sufficient funds, The power of the intelligence group has expanded rapidly. Now it has more than 200 core members and nearly 1,000 peripheral personnel. It has gradually become the most daunting force in Capua. However, Levi does not like assassination. He likes to solve the enemy in an upright way, just like dealing with the administrator of Capua and the admiral of Campania. He wants to solve his enemies in an upright way and use his upright and unmatched momentum to give the enemy a strong deterrent. I know, Morris said lazily, and then drank the wine in the glass. What others don't know is that he is upset. Just when he left yesterday, Levi told him the plan to surrender to Sulla and asked him to make various arrangements in Capua according to this plan. He was a little puzzled about this. Why did he surrender to Sulla? Sulla's situation did not seem to be favorable, and his military strength was completely inferior to that of Rome. Even though he was very good at commanding and fighting, Rome was not weak. Consul Scipio was a descendant of the god of war family, and he did not believe that Scipio was not his opponent. The young man looked at the wine in his glass with envy. That was a good thing that could be sold for 50 denarii. All he could do was twitch his nose and smell the aroma of wine in the air. Should we do it again tomorrow and let Nobanus get some blood on his hands? It's really too much to dare to deprive the head of the family of military power. Marcian, the curly-haired young man, said. What are you thinking? We are Capua people. Don't do this unless it's absolutely necessary. Morris patted his head and said, young people nowadays are really like to go astray and like to plot and scheme. There is no impenetrable wall in this world. If you do something bad, it will be leaked one day. The more Morris thought about the words of the head of the family, the more he felt that it made sense. You can make trouble, but try not to shed blood. Morris said, got it. Also send someone to spread the word that the consul will sell grain at a fair price tomorrow, and there is no limit on the quantity. Those who want to buy should go to the consul's residence as soon as possible, and remember not to let go of the surrounding villages. Morris said with a sinister smile. Marcian looked at Morris in shock. It was such a vicious plan. He was trying to force the consul into a desperate situation. If the people knew about it, they would surround the consul's residence and kill him. I got it, team leader. Don't worry, Marcian said with awe. Nobanus sent the nobles and knights away with a gloomy face. He didn't expect that he, as a consul, asked them for food, but they could postpone it until 3 days later. This made him very angry. How could he fulfill his promise to the citizens of Capua? There must be someone who colluded, otherwise their caliber would not be so consistent, Brutus said. Yes, the only person in Capua who can do this is Levi, Rustus said. Nobanus was even more angry. This damned scum, this scum, was not at peace even after he left, and he kept causing trouble for him. If we buy food from nearby cities, when can it be delivered at the earliest? Nobanus asked. It will take at least 3 days. Although we can buy some from nearby villages, it is not enough to meet the needs of Capua's 100,000 people. Rustus said. Should we sell the army's food to the people? No, the army's food is only enough for a few days. It's okay if the people don't have food, but if the army doesn't have food, the world will collapse. Nobanus never thought that he would be troubled by food. First, buy food from the surrounding villages, as much as you can. Nobanus felt a headache. Also, quickly send someone to negotiate with Levi and try every means to trick him over. He decided to take Levi down even if it took some risks. The next morning, before Nobanus woke up, he was awakened by a soldier. What happened? Why did you wake me up like that? Nobanus said dissatisfiedly. He glanced out the window. It was not even dawn yet. Oh no, there are people everywhere outside. So many people, the soldier said with a look of horror. Is it because of the food issue again? Yes. What's wrong with the Capua people? They blocked this place before dawn. Didn't they say they would solve it today? Nobanus felt that they were really making a fuss. The soldier thought about it and finally couldn't help but not tell the truth. Nobanus walked to the balcony again. As soon as he walked to the balcony, his legs and feet went weak and he almost fell to the ground. Looking from the balcony, there was a dark mass of people everywhere in the distance. How many people are there? There must be at least 10,000. And it's not even dawn yet. When it gets light, there will probably be more people. Seeing the consul coming, the people below the official residence cheered loudly. Long live the consul! Long live Nobanus! Long live Rome! Hearing the cheers, Nobanus felt warm in his heart. He felt that the people of Capua were still very friendly and kind. At least he had never enjoyed such a huge cheer in Rome. He greeted the people very kindly and smiled what he thought was the most charming smile. His actions triggered even louder cheers from below, but the soldiers next to him couldn't help but cover their faces. "I hope you can still smile next time, dear consul. When will the grain be sold at a fair price? Is it really unlimited?" Hearing this, Nobanus's face slowly froze. What the hell is selling grain at a fair price? And unlimited? How come he didn't know about this? If there is, please give him a dozen. Yes, I heard that there was a fair price for grain here, so I set out immediately, without even sleeping. Me too. The current grain price is too expensive. If I had known, I wouldn't have sold the grain before. Start selling grain quickly. We have been waiting all night and can't wait any longer. Nobanus's face became more and more stiff, and his hand that greeted him slowly stopped. "Are you sure you are not joking? When did I say the grain will be sold at a fair price, and there is no limit on the quantity? I just said that I would help you solve this problem. Do you have any misunderstandings?" Everyone. Nobanus tried to force a smile, but then there was a huge cheer. "Long live the consul! Long live Nobanus!" Life is so embarrassing. How can I start talking about it? I wonder if I will be scolded to death if I deny it now. Nobanus maintained an awkward smile, waved his hand, and slowly backed into the room. Ignoring the cheers outside, Nobanus roared angrily, "What is going on? Why would someone say that grain is sold at a fair price? Thank you very much for the rewards from Stay Up Late to Eat Melon Seeds and Book Friend 2017092916453258. If you have a ticket, please vote and gain experience." Chapter 88 Protest. Faced with the anger of Nobanus, the soldiers were all silent and dared not speak at all. "Levi, it must be him who did it. Do you want me to embarrass myself? Do you think I really can't get food?" Nobanus said angrily. He just didn't want to tear his face with the nobles of Capua. In this case, don't blame him for being rude. Under the order of Nobanus, some officers left the official residence and went to the military camp outside the city, mobilizing a large number of soldiers into the city. "What are you doing? Do you know whose store this is?" "This is the store of the Capua elder." In a grain store, a large number of Roman soldiers rushed in, ignoring the obstruction of the clerks and the shopkeeper, carrying bottles of grain and leaving. By order of the Roman consul Nobanus, all grain stores in Capua are requisitioned to provide relief to the hungry. Rome will compensate for these grains at the original price, but it will take several days. A centurion showed the shopkeeper a copy of Nobanus' order, compensation at the original price. Hearing this, the shopkeeper's mood improved a lot. "Yes, just wait for a while," the centurion said. "How long?" "I don't know about this. You can ask the consul." Seeing that the matter was irreversible, the shopkeeper could only quickly report the matter to the boss and ask the boss to make the decision. Nobanus's grain collection storm quickly swept across Capua. All grain stores were opened, and even some secret warehouses were found. A large amount of grain was collected by Nobanus, but fortunately Nobanus wrote an IOU, and with the majesty of the consul, the matter went quite smoothly. The nobles and knights of Capua were not idle either, and they quickly united to ask Nobanus when they could get the money. Nobanus agreed very readily, saying that he had reported to Rome and it should not take more than a month. These nobles and knights were skeptical. With the war coming, all kinds of places spent money like water. If they could really pay back the money in a month, it would be hundreds of thousands of dinars of grain. After learning about this situation, Levi was speechless. He knew that the nobles and knights of Capua were probably cheated, and Sulla would probably be able to attack Capua in a month. With him as a super insider, Capua would definitely be in Sulla's pocket. How could Nobanus pay back the money by then? And it was thankful that Sulla did not settle accounts with them. It was pure dreaming to want to pay back the money. "Master, the envoy of the consul, Admiral Rusticus of Campania, wants to see you." At this time, Julia said gently. "Really? Let him in." Levi said. He wanted to see what Rusticus wanted to say. Soon Rusticus walked in with a smile on his face. "Respected Knight Levi, I brought good news from the consul. His Excellency the consul is magnanimous and believes that we should join hands to fight the enemy in the face of a great enemy. I hope that both sides can reconcile. Oh, His Excellency the consul is so easy to talk to, Levi said with a smile. As for the psychological part, he was all haha. He had deprived himself of his military power so decisively before. He really thought that such a few good words could gain his trust. Yes, the consul has agreed to your proposal and decided to retain your command of 1 legion, and that legion can be stationed in Capua, Rustis said with a smile on his face. Although your conditions are very good, it's a pity that you came too late, Levi said with a look of regret. What do you mean by this? Rustis said puzzledly. I have protested to the Roman Senate and hope that the Roman Senate can send someone to mediate the dispute between the two parties, Levi said with a smile. Although I don't know what Nobanus is up to, it's better to follow my own plan. Rustis was shocked. Why should such a small matter alarm the Roman Senate? I was afraid that the consul would attack Longcheng, so I sent out fast horses the day before yesterday. It's probably too late to chase him now, Levi said. Are you afraid? You are afraid? To be honest, Rustis has never seen such a reckless person as Levi since he was a child. You have to know that this is wartime. Even if Nobanus wants Levi's life, Levi has no place to complain. Okay, I will tell the consul about this situation, and I'll take my leave. Rustis felt that things were beyond his control. No, Levi was too lazy to be polite. He didn't like this man who had been hanging out with the consul. What did you say? He said he sent someone to the Roman Senate to ask for mediation. Nobanus was also shocked after hearing what Rustis said. Yes, he said he was afraid that you would attack Longcheng, so he sent a fast horse to Rome the day before yesterday. Rustis said. Do you need to do this? It's just a small matter. Do you need to go to the Senate to complain? Nobanus felt crazy. He didn't need to think about it. He knew what kind of ridicule and questioning would be caused once this news reached Rome. The enemy hasn't appeared yet, and he has forced his 3 legions to rebel. Incompetence and greed will become his synonyms. Will he even become the unlucky person who was killed by his own people like Cinna? You didn't tell him to send someone to bring the person back, Nobanus said angrily. Rustis hesitated and couldn't say anything. He and Levi had always had a bad relationship, so he didn't mention it. And how could the fast horse that had been sent the day before yesterday be brought back now? What a waste. Nobanus couldn't help but scold. Rustis' face turned red after being scolded by this sentence, but he didn't dare to refute. You go again and discuss with him and ask him to bring the person back. At the very least, you have to reach a reconciliation with him before the envoy of the Roman Senate arrives, Nobanus said. He felt a headache. He originally came to attack Sulla, but now he has become a quarrel with Levi. As you say, the tragic Rustis could only act as this unwelcome envoy. Levi would certainly not agree to Nobanus' request. He insisted on waiting for the Roman envoy to arrive. What he wanted was to delay time, and when the situation got worse and Nobanus's bargaining chips were further reduced, he would have to agree to all his demands. So Rustis was like a ball kicked back and forth by both sides, and he became a punching bag for Nobanus. What Nobanus didn't know was that Levi's fast horses were actually not fast. They walked slowly for 10 days before reaching Rome, and then submitted their own letter of protest to the Roman Senate, protesting strongly against Nobanus's deprivation of his military power. The Roman Senate dared not neglect this matter. After all, Levi was a giant with 3 legions under his command. Why did Nobanus annoy him? However, they also understood Nobanus's thoughts. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Compromise. Even they were worried about letting a 17-year-old boy command 3 legions. But your method is too rough. Can't you be a little gentler? So the Roman Senate decided to send a delegation to persuade both sides. But before they set off, shocking bad news came one after another. Acting consul Metellus led 2 legions to Africa and surrendered to Sulla. Pompey led 3 legions to kill officials and rebel, and was heading towards Brindisi, trying to join Sulla. Upon hearing this news, the Roman Senate did not dare to neglect it and quickly sent Livy's old friend Perker to Capua to mediate the dispute between Livy and Nobanus. Livy also issued a statement in time, strongly condemning Metellus and Pompey's betrayal of Rome. Facing Livy's statement, the Senate was full of praise. "I am really sorry, respected consul. I was indeed too impulsive before, and I hope you can forgive my mistakes," Livy said sincerely. Poker's face was full of smiles, who said Levi was unruly. "I think he was a good comrade. He was just young and ignorant before, but now he has turned over a new leaf. Mr. Consul, you see Levi has also humbled himself. Now that the enemy is at hand, I think it's better for you to take a step back and reconcile," Poker said. At this time, Nobanus' eyes were full of bloodshot. Facing Pompey's rebellion, he sent out a legion, and Scipio sent out 2 legions to snipe, but they were all defeated. Pompey and Sulla successfully joined together. Sulla originally had 5 Roman legions, 6,000 cavalry and a Greek legion. In addition to Metellus' 2 legions and Pompey's 3 legions, he had 11 legions and nearly 9,000 cavalry. This put a lot of pressure on Nobanus, but he still looked at Levi with suspicion. After arriving in Capua, he was cheated by Levi. He didn't believe that Levi had repented. Could he be plotting something? Nobanus thought, but the Senate's opinion still needs to be considered. In addition, 1 legion was defeated by Pompey, and he really didn't have the face to confront the Senate. "I was wrong before. With the enemy at hand, let's unite and fight Sulla together." Nobanus stretched out his hands. The 2 held their hands tightly together, but only the 2 of them would understand how united they were. In the subsequent negotiations, the differences between the 2 were still exposed. "I must at least control 1 legion. This is my bottom line. I have the formula for white sugar and various wine formulas, and that legion must protect the safety of my property." Levi couldn't help but roared. "Well, then, you can station a legion in Capua, and that legion can also be under your command, and your other 2 legions must be handed over to me. And the defense of Capua must be handed over to Clelius, and you must obey Clelius' orders," Nobanus said. Levi looked at him viciously. This guy was really stubborn. He didn't believe him at all. Nobanus also glared back at him unceremoniously. "Giving you a legion is already good enough, you little brat. What else do you want?" "Okay, you don't have to do this. Let's take a step back, okay?" Poker played the role of a peacemaker again. "You can command 2 legions, but the overall organization and officers will remain the same, and the lieutenants will be appointed by me," Levi said. "I don't think Levi's condition is excessive," Poker said. Nobanus glared at Poker fiercely. This guy who only had money and power in his mind. "Can't you consider the interests of Rome? This guy is suspected of having a secret relationship with Sulla. As long as there is a possibility of this, tens of thousands of troops will die without a burial place. The lieutenant must be appointed by me. This is my bottom line," Nobanus said. "I think this condition is also reasonable," Poker said. Levi looked at him strangely. "Which side are you on?" Poker's face did not change, but he just laughed. Levi pondered for a while. This had a certain impact on his plan, but it was acceptable. "Okay, I accept your terms, but I hope you don't treat them as cannon fodder, otherwise I won't let you go." "Of course not, I will treat them well," Nobanus said with a smile. Levi snorted coldly. "I don't believe you." Poker sighed. "The enemy is coming but the generals are not in harmony. It seems that this battle will be difficult to fight. He should leave this place of trouble as soon as possible." Pompey finally successfully joined Sulla, with 11 legions and nearly 10,000 cavalry. Sulla's troops were divided into 2 groups, one to hold Scipio, and the other to rush straight to Capua. The sun was rising, and there was still a ray of red in the sky. The sound of horse hooves broke the silence, and a dozen Numidian light cavalry chased a cavalry in front. As the most famous cavalry in Africa, they played a huge role in the Punic Wars and caused great trouble to the Romans. After Hannibal's defeat, they became foreign mercenaries that the Romans loved very much, and followed the Romans to fight all over the world. The Roman cavalryman in front was filled with fear, seeing that the distance between the 2 sides was getting closer and closer. He would be doomed if there was no reinforcement. At this moment, 3 Roman cavalrymen appeared in front, riding their horses and slowly walking towards this side. Seeing this, the cavalryman was overjoyed. "Help, help, they are Sulla's men." After saying this, regardless of whether the 3 cavalrymen were opponents of so many Numidian cavalrymen, they rushed towards them. The 3 cavalrymen looked at each other, immediately drew their daggers, and began to accelerate while slapping their horses. The Numidian cavalrymen made strange roars and rushed towards them with their spears. "What a 3 fools!" The Roman cavalryman thought that as long as that man attracted the Numidian cavalrymen, he would have a chance to escape. The distance between the Roman cavalrymen and the 3 cavalrymen was getting closer and closer, and they would soon pass each other. A hint of joy appeared on the face of the Roman cavalryman, and at this moment, something strange happened. A sharp sword tip scratched his throat, and a lot of blood spurted out. "How is this possible?" the Roman cavalry thought in disbelief, and then fell off his horse. This situation caught the Numidian cavalry off guard. They surrounded them one after another, but did not take action. "I am Hadrianus, the centurion of General Sulla's personal guard. Take me to Lord Sulla's camp," the leading cavalry said. "Do you have evidence?" a Numidian cavalry asked in stiff Latin. "No, I am carrying out a confidential mission, and my identity cannot be known to anyone," Hadrianus said. The Numidian cavalry exchanged some words with each other, and then led them to run towards the army. Chapter 90 Pompey. They just need to take them back. How to identify them is the job of the officers. Along the way, they found a large number of scouts. Although the armies of both sides have not yet come into contact, the scouts have already begun to fight each other. Among them are not only Numidian cavalry, Roman cavalry, but also some Greek cavalry. Not long after, they came to the front of a large army that was wending forward. After some questioning, they finally confirmed their identities and were brought to the front of Sulla's mount. At this time, Sulla was scolding a young man with extraordinary appearance. "Crassus, your father, your brothers, and your relatives were all killed by the enemy. I just asked you to recruit soldiers, and you have to ask me to protect your safety. Are you worthy of your relatives?" Now Sulla is facing attacks from both Scipio and Nobanus at the same time. Facing powerful enemies, every bit of his troops must be used reasonably. When he heard that Crassus was going to send troops to protect him, he got angry. Hearing this, the young man's face turned pale. He had to go through a lot of enemy-occupied areas to recruit soldiers. What's wrong with him just asking a team of guards to protect his safety? But he didn't dare to refute, so he could only say helplessly, "I know, I'll go now." After that, he left here in disgrace. At this time, Sulla saw Hadrianus. His eyes lit up, and then he laughed. "You are finally back. You must have brought good news this time." "It's not convenient to talk here." Hadrianus looked around and said, "That person said that he can only report to you alone. How about this, Pompey? You come with me." After all, the news of your uprising was revealed to me by him. Sulla smiled and said to a handsome man in his 20s beside him, "Who are you talking about?" The young man looked at Hadrianus with some doubts. "Who is he?" He actually knew the news of his uprising before Sulla. "You will know when you come." "Is this person Pompey?" Hadrianus also looked at Pompey in surprise. "A big landlord who can organize 3 legions. His power is not inferior to Levi at all." Because of Sulla's order, Hadrianus couldn't refute it. When they came to a secluded place, Sulla told him the whole story. "Levi is actually one of yours?" Pompey was shocked. He had known about Levi for a long time. No wonder Sulla dared to attack Capua with 6 legions of troops. This was his biggest reliance. "Yes, he was the first to know about your uprising, and then Hadrianus sent someone to tell me, so I could lead troops to support you in time," Sulla said with a smile. "I see, so we will definitely win this battle," Pompey said. "Yes. The defection of 3 legions determines the outcome of this war. If he really surrenders to us, we will easily occupy Capua. If it is fake, the strength of Nobanus plus the garrison in Capua and Levi's 3 legions, the enemy's strength will be far superior to ours." At this point, Sulla's face was gloomy. If it was fake, he might suffer a defeat here. It can be said that Levi completely determines the outcome of this war. Now he was facing the Roman legion, not the barbarian army. Facing the barbarian army, he could win with fewer troops. facing the Roman legion. This was not necessarily the case. Later, Sulla and the enemy had the final decisive battle under the city of Rome. Sulla's main camp was almost penetrated by the enemy, and it was Crassus' army that gained the upper hand and won the war. If Scipio was not slippery and it was really difficult to get an advantage from him, how could he risk going to Capua? Is he really willing to surrender to us? Pompey was a little worried. Sulla did not answer, but looked at Hadrianus. Hadrianus thought for a while and said, "It should be sincere." He did not hide many things from us, including the deployment of troops and the city defense map of Capua. "What do you want to do this time?" Sulla asked. "Levi sent me to report the situation in Capua. In addition, he has formulated a battle plan and hopes to get your approval." Hadrianus told Levi's plan in detail. After listening to this, Sulla and Pompey thought carefully. If this plan succeeded, they would definitely win this time, but if it was a fake, they might lose. Pompey looked at Sulla. He was the commander of the army, and he had to make the decision. Sulla thought for a long time, and then said, "I'll trust him once." Sulla came, and the scouts of both sides had already started fighting. The news quickly spread throughout Capua. There was a scene of chaos everywhere. Some knights and nobles left Capua directly to seek refuge in other places, and more civilians could only bear it silently and hoard all supplies frantically. They prayed to the gods silently, hoping that the disaster would not befall Capua. Even Levi was very busy. Due to limited military strength, he had to temporarily abandon Dragon City and transfer all the supplies in Dragon City to Capua. "Have we put all our food away?" Levi asked in one of Levi's manners in Capua. "All of them have been put in the warehouse. They are enough for 20,000 people to eat for 3 years. Not a single grain is missing," Gaius said happily. As the saying goes, if you have food in your hands, you will not be worried. Levi used to ask Julia to withdraw 300,000 dinars every month to purchase food, and now it has finally borne sweet fruits. Whether selling or eating so much food, it will not lose money. If it is sold, it can at least make a terrifying profit of several million dinars. "You must keep an eye on our food. If anything goes wrong, I will only ask you," Levi said. In ancient times, productivity was backward, and food was not as cheap as in later times. Often, eating could exhaust a person's income. What's more, it is now a time of war. If Sulla promises to supply all the expenses of his soldiers, he will sell the food and make a fortune. With this money, when Sulla captures Rome, he can take the opportunity to buy a lot of real estate and real estate. The reason why Crassus became the richest man in Rome was that he made his fortune by buying a large number of cheap Roman real estate during this period. You know, real estate in Rome is notoriously expensive. This is probably the best opportunity to buy Roman real estate at a low price. "Make sure you complete the task," Gaius said. "By the way, Gaius, who do you think will win this war?" Livius asked with a smile. "If it's this battle, of course we can win," Gaius said. Part of Sulla's army was tied up by Scipio, and he dared to split his troops to attack us. He is simply courting death. His behavior is not like that of a famous general, but simply an idiot. Chapter 91 Inspection. Levi admitted that he was right. According to the routine operation, Sulla should have concentrated his forces to defeat Rome, but now the troops were divided into 2 groups, which was an absolute way to die. Of course, if he, the super insider, was not counted. Because of this little butterfly, Capua had 3 more legions than in history, resulting in a complete imbalance of strength between the 2 sides. Without him, Sulla could have relied on his superb command skills to defeat Nobanus in the wild. "What do you think of Nobanus? What do you think of Capo and Scipio?" Levi asked with a smile. "Needless to say, they are all a bunch of bastards. Scipio has a good relationship with us on the surface, but secretly covets our white sugar formula. Capo is arrogant and domineering. Not only did Nobanus deprive you of your military power, but he also didn't trust us at all. He just let us serve as a reserve, and didn't even let us go up the city wall. Sometimes he didn't even notify us when he held a combat meeting," Gaius said viciously. He knew that Levi hated these people, so of course he tried his best to blacken them to death. Only in this way could Levi trust him more. "Then what do you think about us joining forces with Sulla?" Levi said suddenly. Gita was stunned, and then looked at him in shock. "Master, are you telling the truth?" Gita couldn't help swallowing his saliva and said, "This is a big deal. In fact, I have been in contact with Sulla for a long time. As long as I stand on his side, we will win the Battle of Capua. With the support of southern Italy, Greece, Macedonia, Cilicia and Asia, our chance of winning is at least more than half," Levi said. Gita suddenly felt that Levi was so strange. He thought he knew Levi very well before, but now he found that he was completely wrong. Levi was really crazy enough to put his life and property on Sulla without hesitation. He looked around and found that Morris had guarded the door with people at some point. He smiled at him, and a drop of cold sweat flowed down Gita's forehead. "Follow the master until death." Gita no longer hesitated and knelt on one knee and said, "Very good, I didn't misjudge you," Levi said with a smile. After more than half a year of brainwashing, his control over his subordinates has become very strong. If he can't even deal with Gita, then he is too much of a failure. "Once the war breaks out, it's time for us to act," Levi said. "The master of the family will win." Gita did not forget to flatter. "You go to the military camp outside the city and help me keep an eye on the 2 legions. Don't let nobleness destroy them. In addition, I have some tasks to give you," Levi said. "Yes, master of the family," Gita said. In the military camp of the 2nd Legion of Capua, Gita and the military judge Liberius followed the new Deputy General Brutus to inspect, and his face was not good. Yesterday was the day Brutus just took office, but he found that he couldn't command some officers at all. What he didn't know was that this was an order given by Levi in secret, so he got angry with Liberius, the commander of the 2nd Legion of Capua. What can Liberius do? He can only bear it. Early this morning, Brutus took a few soldiers to inspect the military camp. After visiting several tents in a row, he found that the soldiers' quilts were quite neat, so he said with admiration, "I didn't expect their tents to be so clean during the war." Gita and Liberius smiled at each other and didn't intend to explain anything to him. "I heard that your requirements are stricter than this in normal times," Brutus said, and then looked at Gita and Liberius. If he found out which bastard leaked this, he would skin him alive. Gita cursed inwardly. "Yes, the requirements are stricter than this in normal times," Gita said in an almost perfunctory tone. "How strict are they in normal times?" Brutus asked curiously. "Require the quilt to be folded into a square shape," Gita said. "Square shape? They actually require the quilt to be folded into a square shape? How is that possible?" Brutus said with a look of shock. "And now this one doesn't seem to be in a square shape. What a damn country bumpkin," Gita and Liberius thought with contempt. "Who of you will fold it for me?" Brutus said excitedly, but no soldier agreed. They had received orders that they were not allowed to be too active in Brutus's life, otherwise they would be expelled from the guard. Brutus soon noticed the strange atmosphere and snorted coldly. It seemed that these people were not convinced by him. "You come." Brutus pointed to a soldier and said. The selected soldier folded the quilt helplessly. Seeing the quilt being folded into a square inches front of him, Brutus became more and more interested. "Why did you do this? Was it Levi's request?" "Yes," Gita replied. He was really frugal with words, and Brutus's face darkened. At this time, a dozen cavalrymen rode in from outside. "Medic, medic, someone is injured here," a cavalryman shouted loudly. Soon, several soldiers with white Red Cross armbands on their sleeves rushed over, helped the injured cavalrymen off their horses, and then carried them to the field hospital on stretchers. "What is that? Was it also invented by Levi?" Brutus pointed to the stretcher and asked. "Yes, it's called a stretcher, and it's the most convenient way to carry wounded soldiers," Gita said proudly. "Also, what are medical soldiers?" "I remember that there were doctors in the Roman army, but there were no medical soldiers," Brutus said. "They are the doctors of the army. They not only receive military training, but also learn medical skills, but they don't have to participate in battles. Their main task is to provide battlefield rescue, give emergency treatment to injured soldiers, and then carry them to the rear for treatment," Gita said. "It's really strange. What's the benefit of this? Isn't it enough to recruit some doctors temporarily?" Brutus thought about it, and he decided to follow them and see how they handled it. In fact, Levi originally wanted to establish a medical soldier system for later generations, but he found that cold weapon wars and hot weapon wars were completely different. Cold weapon wars are extremely particular about formations. Once medical soldiers come in and out during the war, the damage to the formation is too great, so he gave up this idea and just trained them as doctors. Gati gave Liberius a look. Why did the cavalry suffer so many casualties? You know, the opposite side is a friendly army. Liberace spread his hands and said, I told them to just paddle and not fight desperately. Who knows what's wrong with them? Brutus soon arrived at the medical camp. Since the war had not started yet, there were not many people here. He entered a tent and found that it was very clean. Several medical soldiers were treating the wound of a cavalryman, but soon Brutus's face changed slightly because he smelled a strong aroma of wine. Who is drinking here? Chapter 92 Long Sword. The Roman military law was quite strict, but it did not prohibit alcohol. Soldiers could drink alcohol not only in normal times, but also in wartime. Later, when Caesar and Pompey were defeated in the first battle, Caesar still let the soldiers drink a lot during the retreat, and even after occupying the city of Gophi in Thessaly, he let the soldiers drink as much as they wanted. At that time, Caesar's soldiers suffered from some diseases due to acclimatization, but they recovered without medicine because of drinking wine. This is used for disinfection and cleaning wounds for the wounded. A medical soldier explained. Disinfection? What does this mean? Brutus asked. This is what the master of the Levi family said. He didn't explain it in detail, but just asked to clean all the injured parts with alcohol. The medical soldier said, alcohol. Brutus felt that his brain was not enough. Why did he come here and there were new terms everywhere? This is the thing. The medical soldier pointed to a 2-ear narrow-neck bottle and said. Brutus took it and smelled it, and found that the aroma of wine came from here. He licked it gently, and it was indeed the smell of wine, and it was very strong. He remembered that some new wine produced by Levi was popular in Capua recently. Could it be this kind of thing? Is this the strong liquor? Basically the same. How effective are these things? Brutus asked. I don't know yet, but recently 15 cavalrymen were injured, and only one showed signs of pus discharge. The medical soldier said. Brutus couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Due to the limitations of medical conditions, the infection of wounds after injuries on the battlefield in ancient times was high, and the casualties caused by this were countless. Although these people may have been injured for a short time, it is already very scary to be able to achieve this level. Do you still have this kind of thing? Give me some. Brutus pointed at the alcohol and said, yes, but if you want to reduce the casualty rate, you must not only rely on alcohol, but also a good sanitary environment and system. For example, cotton balls can be used for disinfection, and many instruments are preferably disposable, so as to reduce cross-infection. The medical soldier then talked endlessly. This is actually a set of medical systems from later generations. Gati glared at the medical soldier fiercely and said, say your mothers be, if we continue, we will let them know all the secrets of the Second Legion. Brutus became more and more interested, and talked with the medic for a long time until he told him everything he knew. How about this? You copy all your rules and regulations and give them to me. Brutus also took a few bottles of alcohol before leaving. The medic was very happy, thinking that he was valued by the deputy general, and he didn't notice Gaetan's murderous look at all. Sulla's army finally arrived, and they camped not far from Nobanus' army. The arrival of Sulla's army made the atmosphere in Capua extremely tense, and the city gates were closed. Except for the army, civilians were prohibited from leaving the city. People knew that Nobanus' promise about the Spanish grain transport ship was likely to fail. Recalling Hannibal's experience of attacking Rome, the grain price in Capua rose to an incredible height again. If Livy was willing to sell the grain in his hands, he could easily make a profit of more than 10 million dinars, but it was a pity that he could not sell the grain at this juncture. In Levi's manner, he gently stroked a long sword. This sword is different from the Roman dagger. It is much thinner and longer than the Roman dagger, just like the Han sword. And there are a lot of cloud patterns on the sword. This is the only 30 refined sword made by the blacksmith of the Levi family in the past 6 months. The value is inestimable. Probably only a few swords in the East China can compare with it. And forging this kind of iron is not a simple stewing steel. There are still some impurities in the Spanish block iron. Levi returned a large amount of Spanish block iron to the furnace, and after removing the impurities, he made a furnace of brand new iron ingots. This furnace of iron ingots only made 2 swords, and the others were all sealed. He planned to use them for some experiments. If he wants to realize his ambition, it may not be enough to rely on cold weapons. At this time, Valens came in with Hadlianus. Levi signaled the slaves around him to let them all go down. "What's the matter?" Levi asked. "General Sulla will have a decisive battle with Nobanus the day after tomorrow. Lord Sulla hopes that you can take Capua on that day." Hadlianus said, "No problem, but there are still Capua garrisons in the city, so it's not easy to take it in a short time." Levi said, "What should we do then?" Hadlianus asked with a frown. "You can send an army to ambush nearby in advance," Levi said. Hadlianus thought about it, and it would make Sulla's frontal battlefield more tense, and he didn't know whether Sulla would agree. "I'll run again and tell General Sulla about the situation here," Hadlianus said. "Thank you for your trouble," Levi said. Hadlianus looked at the sword in Levi's hand with some surprise. "Why is this sword so long?" Then he left here, and Valens followed to escort him out. Finally, it has come to this point, Levi thought. He should have arranged it almost, and it's time to see the real thing. Not long after, another soldier came in. "Report to the master. A personal guard of the consul wants to see you." "Let him in." Not long after, a Roman soldier came in. "Hello, Lord Levi." The Roman soldier saluted and said. Levi nodded. "What's the matter?" The consul asked if you have something called alcohol. The soldier asked. "Yes." "What's the matter?" "I didn't expect to find my good stuff so quickly. It seems that Nobanus is not a waste. The consul hopes to buy some alcohol and orders you to send people to provide necessary training for doctors and other legions." The soldier said, "No problem, but my alcohol is very expensive. A small bottle costs 50 denarii. May I ask how much the consul wants?" Levi said with a smile. "He never refuses customers who come to his door. What's more, if he wins this battle in the future, he can just snatch it back and sell it again." The soldier's mouth twitched. "It's really expensive. Anyway, Rome pays for it, not my money." The consul said to buy 100 bottles first. "When the money arrives, I will send it to you," Levi said. "Then I'll leave first." After that, the soldier left here. In the dark night, a hall in the barracks was brightly lit. All the officers above the centurion level of the 1st Legion and the royal guards gathered here waiting for Levi's arrival. They discussed the battle situation in a low voice. They were very confident in this war. With 10 legions against Sulla's 6 legions, they had a great chance of winning. At this time, Levi walked in with a few royal guards. Chapter 93, War. "The master of the family is here." Upon hearing this, the officers immediately stopped talking, sat up straight, and looked at the people below. Among them, the retainers accounted for at least 3/4, and his control over the 1st Legion was very strong. "I called you here tonight to discuss tomorrow's battle plan," Levi said. Everyone looked at each other in surprise. "Battle plan? Is the enemy going to attack the city tomorrow?" "Capo bullied me too much back then, and Nobanus tried to take my military power, so I decided to surrender to Sulla and resist Rome." Hearing this, there was an uproar below. "How could this happen?" "Surprisingly, I have to surrender to Sulla." Levi ignored them. "We have already contacted Sulla. Tomorrow Sulla will send troops to attack the city. We will take the opportunity to cooperate inside and outside to capture Capua. Do you have any questions?" Everyone was silent for a while, and then someone said, "No problem, no problem." As the voices became more and more, everyone said one after another. Even if someone had some ideas, they dared not show them in this situation. "Very good. This time we will cooperate with Sulla to defeat Nobanus and take Capua. We will win this battle," Levi said. "We will win," Morris shouted. "We will win, we will win, we will win." More and more people shouted, and they kept thinking that if Levi changed sides, Sulla's strength would increase dramatically. Coupled with the unexpected sneak attack, Nobanus was doomed to lose. Tonight, we will form a group of 10, and no one is allowed to leave the group and act alone. The camp is closed, and those who dare to leave the camp will be killed without mercy. Next, I will announce tomorrow's battle plan, Levi said with a smile, but his smile was filled with murderous intent. The next day, just after dawn, teams of soldiers left Sulla's camp and formed a huge phalanx. The standard Roman infantry phalanx is divided into 6 rows per battalion, with less than 2 meters between rows and less than 1 meter between soldiers. But once there are a large number of people, the Roman generals will increase the number of rows in the phalanx, because a thicker army formation is far more effective than a longer army formation. Under Sulla's command, his 6 legions formed a giant square formation with 10 rows in front and back of each battalion, together with the cavalry on both wings. The entire army was several kilometers long, and then slowly advanced towards Nobanus' camp. Upon hearing the news, Nobanus was overjoyed. Sulla actually dared to take the initiative to attack him, which was simply seeking death. Today he will defeat Sulla, and his name Nobanus will shine throughout the Mediterranean. So he also ordered the army to leave the camp, line up the formation, and keep thickening the army formation, preparing to fight the enemy. Seeing that the formation was about to be arranged, Geta winked at Liberius. Liberius nodded knowingly, and then went to entangle Brutus. In order to succeed, the centurion's command power was temporarily deprived these days, and only the retainers had the command of the army. At this time, Geta admired Levi to the extreme. This was really a genius idea, which strengthened his control over the army to the extreme. He took more than 20 personal soldiers and walked to the middle of the army and called several retainers to tell them the whole story. After hearing his words, the shock of the retainers can be imagined. Could it be that Geta's suspicion at the beginning was true? The master of the family was indeed in collusion with Sulla. These are all the master's intentions. The master of the family has already agreed with Sulla to offer the city of Capua today, so we must win and Nobanus must lose. What you have to do is to do a good job as a soldier. If anyone dares to disobey, kill them. Remember not to let Brutus's people find out. Understand? Geta said viciously. The retainers thought about it and finally nodded in agreement. If they turned against him, Nobanus would definitely lose, and the brainwashing for half a year was not in vain. They had to recite the words of loyalty to Livius every day. From a psychological point of view, this is called the principle of commitment consistency. No one wants to be regarded as a two-faced person. For what they say, everyone will unconsciously follow the original promise. Simply put, even if I know I am wrong, I will not admit it. Even though he knew he was brainwashed, he would not admit it, and believed that he was truly loyal to Levi. Geta called other retainers and started the same work. Fortunately, Liberius did a very good job, and he had entangled Brutus tightly, and he had no idea that the entire legion had undergone a huge change. The only thing that worried Geta was the 3rd Legion. He trusted the officers of the 3rd Legion very much, and the only thing he was worried about was the soldiers. Those soldiers had a large number of slaves and gladiators, and he didn't know whether they were willing to obey the orders of the master. At this time, there was a sudden noise in the formation. Geta hurriedly stepped forward and found that a centurion had fallen in a pool of blood. He wants to betray us. A retainer came over and whispered quietly. Geta nodded, and just as he was about to order someone to drag him away, Brutus had already brought people over. What happened here? Brutus asked. For a moment, the place was silent, and some people even unconsciously grasped the hilt of the sword. He wanted to be a deserter, so we executed him on the spot, Geta said calmly. Oh, well done, Brutus said. He did not notice the change in the atmosphere, which made everyone feel relieved. Sulla's army was getting closer and closer, and Geta's face showed a complicated look. The trumpet and the military bugle sounded at the same time behind Nobanus, and the eagle flag pointed forward. When the trumpet sounded, the army attacked. The sound of the military bugle was to remind the flag bearer and the legionary commander to pay attention to the military flag, so the trumpet and the military bugle often sounded at the same time. All troops advance. Brutus said in high spirits. The legion flag pointed forward. All troops advance, all troops advance. The military tribunes shouted one by one. The whole army set off with a bang, and the Roman soldiers lined up in neat rows, holding shields and walking forward. It was just that there was a buzzing sound from time to time in Capua's team, and there were some collisions in the team from time to time, which was completely different from the strict military discipline in peacetime. Gaeta knew in his heart that these were the retainers explaining the orders. Silence. Do not speak casually, otherwise, you will be punished by military law, Brutus said angrily. The distance between the two sides was getting closer and closer, and the sound of trumpets and military bugles rang out again. Stop advancing. Archers, javelin throwers, and slingers, move forward, Brutus shouted loudly. The second Capua legion immediately stopped advancing, but the crossbowmen, javelin throwers, and slingers did not leave the army formation and come to the front of the army. What are you doing? Why are you disobeying military orders? Brutus shouted loudly. Chapter 94, Defection. At this time, the archers, javelin throwers and slingers of other legions had left the army and came to the front of the army, aiming at the Sulla legion that continued to advance. Some soldiers of the second legion turned back and looked at him with strange eyes. For some reason, Brutus felt that those eyes were full of malice. At this time, a military tribune issued an order, and the 8th Battalion turned back collectively, then drew their javelins, and looked at Brutus with malicious eyes. The infantry phalanx of the Roman legion was like this. It was divided into two large rows. The first row from right to left was the 1st Battalion to the 5th Battalion, and the second row from right to left was the 6th Battalion to the 10th Battalion. Therefore, the 8th Battalion was the closest to Brutus. What are you going to do? Brutus said in horror. At this time, he did not notice that Gaeta, Liberius and others had already left him. Throw javelins. The military tribune shouted loudly. With his order, dense javelins covered the sky and then fell in the direction of Brutus. Some of Brutus's guards reacted in time and used their shields to block the top of themselves, but more of them were penetrated by the spears and nailed to the ground alive. Brutus, as a deputy general, was their main target. He had more than a dozen javelins stuck in his body and looked at all this in disbelief. How could this be? Then he closed his eyes unwillingly. Gaeta and Liberius showed joy on their faces. This was finally done. With Gaeta's order, the entire army was divided into two parts, and a large number of javelins were thrown at the Roman army on both sides at the same time. In a moment of carelessness, I don't know how many Roman soldiers were nailed to death by javelins. The Roman army was in chaos for a while. How could this be? It was obviously a friendly army. Why did it attack itself? The second legion of Capua would not hesitate. After a new round of javelin throwing was completed, it rushed to the enemy legion. Sulla, Pompey and others who had been watching all this nervously could not help but be overjoyed. Levi really turned against his side in the battle, and the big thing was settled. Everyone attack. The three enemy legions have surrendered to us. Victory is just around the corner. Sulla drew his dagger and shouted. Pay attention to the people with dragon patterns on their armor. They are our own people, don't kill them. The centurions who had already received the order also gave orders, and then killed the enemy. The defection of the second legion of Capua was absolutely disastrous. The two Roman legions were ambushed by the second legion of Capua on the flank, and they were simply stunned. In addition, the enemy charged head-on. Soon the left wing showed a tendency to collapse. If Nobanus did not send troops to support it, the left wing would undoubtedly fail. Nobanus was also stunned by this change. How could this be? Did Livy rebel? No, his right wing, and the third legion of Capua. Nobanus reacted quickly, and at this moment, he vaguely saw that his right wing was also in chaos. Not long after, a messenger rode over on a war horse. Report to the consul. The Capua 3rd Legion turned against us and suddenly launched a surprise attack on our flank cavalry and the 5th Legion. They suffered heavy losses. Lieutenant General Did is asked too for help. If you don't send reinforcements, he will not be able to hold on. Hearing this, Nobanus' eyes went dark and he almost fell to the ground. It's over. It's completely over. Levi, you bastard. I'm not done with you." Because he was worried that Levi's 2 legions would stick together and not obey his orders, he deliberately placed them on the left and right wings, but he didn't expect that it would cause greater damage. "The only way now is to withdraw to the camp first and make plans. In addition, if possible, we should send troops to support the city of Capua." At this time, one of his staff members said, "Yes, yes. Retreat first." Nobanus no longer had the intention to compete with Sulla. It would be strange if he could win in this situation. The city of Capua was probably in danger, and all he could do was to withdraw to the camp first and make plans. But Sulla was a famous general, so he couldn't just withdraw whenever he wanted. He brought nearly 7,000 cavalrymen. If they retreated, it would be a one-sided massacre. The bugle sounded, and the cavalry deployed on both wings immediately began to charge. On the city of Capua, a soldier who was on guard rubbed his eyes. In the distance, a large number of black shadows were moving towards the city of Capua. "Enemy attack! Enemy attack!" The soldier shouted loudly. The city wall immediately became tense, and a large number of soldiers walked up to the city wall and began to defend. The crossbows were turned on, and stones were aimed at the enemy. Even the catapults were loaded with stones. The situation here was immediately transmitted to Levi's camp at the fastest speed. Not long after, the camp gates were opened, and teams of soldiers left the camp. These soldiers were divided into 2 groups. One group's target was the city wall, and the other group rushed straight to the mansion of Clelius. Levi led his personal guards to rush straight to the city wall. Now the most important thing was to control the city wall and the city gate, and not let Nobanus's troops in. "You want to attack with so few people. You really don't know how to live or die," Rustus said with contempt. There were less than 3,000 enemies outside Capua. Rustus was confident that he could defeat them even in a field battle, not to mention the trenches and spikes outside. But out of caution, Rustus had no intention of leaving the city. Those soldiers hid outside the range of the crossbows and seemed to have no intention of attacking the city, which made Rustus confused. What did they mean? At this moment, a large number of footsteps came from behind the city wall. Rustus looked back and found that a large number of soldiers were walking towards this side. Rustus frowned. Why did Levi's men come? But it seemed normal for him to come when someone attacked the city. Levi led a large number of soldiers to the city wall, and those soldiers did not stop them. "I heard that someone came to attack the city," Levi walked over and said, and a large number of soldiers followed him, and rudely pushed Rustus's men aside. Those soldiers dared to be angry but did not dare to speak. After all, Levi's power in Capua was too great. As Capua people, they still had to live here. "There are less than 3,000 people, and they are not attacking the city," Rustus said. He was extremely angry at the rudeness of Levi's men, but in the end he didn't say anything. "I heard that you leaked a lot of my secrets to the consul," Levi said lightly. "No, the consul is just asking some ordinary little things." Rustus suddenly felt alert. What did he mean by this? He looked around and found that he had been surrounded by Levi's men without knowing when. Those soldiers had murderous eyes, and each of them pressed his hand on the hilt of the sword, as if they would fight if they disagreed. Moreover, Levi's men continued to pour onto the city wall. Before long, the city wall was full of his men. Chapter 95 Arabella. Rustus was startled, and suddenly felt something was wrong. At the same time, he quietly put his hand on the hilt of the sword. "Remember not to offend me in the next life," Levi said, and then drew his sword and stabbed Rustus. Rustus wanted to draw his sword, but several guards beside him held his hands. Puff! The sword easily pierced his throat. The hot blood splashed on Levi's face. Levi wiped it with disgust, and the whole person turned into a bloody man. "Why do you do this?" Rustus said in disbelief. "The reason is very simple. Because I think Sulla can win, so I decided to stand on his side," Levi said very sincerely. Could it be true that they said he and Sulla were in collusion? What a bastard! Why didn't Capo find out? Rustus thought. "And my 2 legions on the front line should have revolted. If nothing unexpected happens, Nobanus will be defeated," Levi said. Rustus had a face full of despair. He opened his mouth wide, wanting to say something, but in the end, he couldn't say anything. At this time, Levi's soldiers had already taken action. In the sneak attack, many Capua garrisons were either killed or restrained. Levi successfully controlled the city wall. "Do you have any last words?" Levi asked. Let go. Let go. My family," Rusty said intermittently. Levi frowned. The families of the defeated often have no good end. Being demoted to a slave was already good. With Sulla's vicious personality, it was probably impossible to survive. But seeing Rusty's pitiful appearance, Levi's saintly heart was broken again. "Forget it. At most I can cheat him once. Don't worry. I will take care of your wife." Puff. A mouthful of blood suddenly spurted out of Rusty's mouth, and then he completely lost his life. Levi was embarrassed, as if he had said something wrong. "Forget it. Don't think about it." After a small-scale battle, Levi's people completely controlled the city wall. The city gate slowly opened with a rumble. Looking at the city gate that opened in the distance, Delabela's face turned brighter. It seemed that everything was going well, but he did not immediately order the soldiers to enter the city, but asked them to wait quietly where they were. Not long after, 2 riders rushed out of the city. Hadlianus saluted him, and then said, "Lieutenant Delabela, we have successfully controlled the city gate. Please enter the city quickly." The number of people was correct, and the various secret codes were also correct. It seemed that it was not a trap. "Follow me into the city," Delabela said. With his order, the soldiers quickly rushed into the city. Soon Levi saw Delabela, a man in his 40s with light gray eyes, who looked very energetic. "Are you Delabela?" Levi asked curiously. His memory of Delabela was that he was Sulla's absolute confidant. After Sulla conquered Rome, he made him the first Roman consul. "Yes, I didn't expect you to have heard of my name, but you are also very good. Just a little worse than me." Delabela laughed, and then hugged Levi warmly. Levi laughed dumbly. "This is really a very interesting person. Let's occupy the other walls and then clear out the enemies in the city. The enemies will come back soon," Delabela said with a smile. "Okay." Levi agreed immediately. There are still nearly a legion of enemies in the city. It will take a hard fight to take Capua. So the 2 sides joined forces and quickly killed the enemies in the city. For a while, the sound of killing in Capua was deafening. Bang, bang, bang. "Open the door, open the door." An anxious knock on the door sounded outside the Basciatus family's mansion, and some Basciatus family guards nervously blocked the door. Then he looked at Quintus not far away. Quintus thought for a moment, then said, "Who are you? What happened outside?" "I am a subordinate of Lieutenant General Crilius. Levi betrayed Rome, and now Lieutenant General Crilius is leading his troops to encircle and suppress him. The Lieutenant General has ordered that as long as you are willing to help, Rome will definitely reward you greatly." The voice outside said anxiously, "Levi betrayed Rome." Everyone in the mansion was shocked by the news. How could this be possible? Levi is the pride of Capua and the legend of the entire Rome. How could he betray Rome? How is this possible? Quintus felt like he was going to piss himself. How dare Levi do such a daring thing? Isn't he afraid of being nailed to the cross? Titus also looked unbelievable. He watched Levi grow up. How could such a good child become like this? If we don't take action, will we be implicated by him? Capo and the others are all butchers, Quintus said with fear. Now that Levi has betrayed Rome, will what happened in Rome happen again in Capua? Titus was also confused for a moment, not knowing what to do. He was very knowledgeable about training gladiators, but he was a real layman when it came to fighting. I think it will be difficult for the consuls to win. Once Levi betrays Rome, the balance of victory will definitely fall to Sulla. Levi is very powerful and has the ability to dominate the outcome of this war. At this time, Ludia was the calmest. But they still have to face Rome. Scipio and Marius the Younger, Quintus said. Marius the Younger was the son of Marius. Even if he didn't have 10% of his father's ability, he would have at least 60% or 70%. Moreover, the Romans had a superstition about the Scipio family. It was the family of the god of war. Even Sulla would find it difficult to defeat Scipio. That's a matter for the future. At least now I think we shouldn't help the consuls, Ludia said. Ludia is right. Stay calm. We won't help anyone, Titus said. At the same time, he felt sorry. It wasn't that he didn't help Levi, but that he couldn't afford to help. At this moment, There were screams and noises outside. A guard looked out through the crack in the door and found that a Roman soldier had fallen on their gate. In addition, there were a large number of corpses lying on the street. Some people with the Levi family emblem were stabbing those soldiers, which scared him. Dead, all dead. The guard said. Are the soldiers of Clelius dead? Quintus asked. Yes. Titus and Quintus were so scared that their faces turned pale. This was really terrible. Fortunately, they did not decide to help them, otherwise they would also die. Memmius and several soldiers stabbed a Roman soldier to death. At this time, there were no enemies on the city wall. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96. Entering the city. Nobanus sent an army to try to retake Capua, but they arrived too late. Levi had already firmly controlled Capua, and Capua's defenses were really perfect. Not only were there a lot of trenches and spikes, but the walls were tall and strong. These were originally used to deal with Sulla, but they were unexpectedly used on them. Seeing that he could not break through the walls, and the news of defeat had already come from the front, the deputy general had no intention of fighting and began to flee with his soldiers. Are you all gone? Levi said. Yes, it seems that we have defended Capua. Dolabalus smiled. There are still some enemies in the city. It's time to eliminate the remaining enemies, Levi said. Yes. So Levi and Dolabella joined forces to carry out the final elimination of the enemies in the city. Although there were some twists and turns, they finally succeeded in occupying Capua. Not long after, news came from the front. Due to Levi's defection, Nobanus was defeated. The enemy suffered more than 7,000 casualties and more than 10,000 prisoners. Nobanus fled to the barracks, but found a fire in the barracks, which made him curse Levi, and finally he had to flee on horseback. Outside the city of Capua, a large number of Roman soldiers lined up in neat rows to welcome Sulla's arrival. Levi and Dolabella stood in front, and many officers were in a good mood. However, some people were uneasy. The administrator Gellius looked resentful. He was obviously Levi's man, so why did he know about this only after the war broke out? Fortunately, Levi did not abandon him, and dragged him here afterwards. The elders were even more anxious. You know, many people were still offering advice to Nobanus a few days ago, and in a blink of an eye, Capua was sold to Sulla by Levi, which was simply a death sentence for them. I don't know if those things will spread to Sulla's ears. So a group of people surrounded Levi and tried to curry favor with him. Even old Tullius was no exception. As the local boss of Capua, Levi certainly didn't want Capua to be damaged too much, and he had already promised them the safety of their lives and property. Not long after, he saw a group of officers coming over here, led by a tall, fair-skinned man with some acne on his face. Ha ha ha, this must be General Levi. As soon as I saw you, I knew you must be a young hero. As soon as he saw Levi, Sulla laughed and said, and then hugged him tightly. This victory was an extremely important turning point. His troops would exceed Rome, and he occupied Campania, an important grain-producing area and strategic location. From then on, he entered the active offensive stage, while Rome fell into the defensive stage. General Sulla is too polite. How can I deserve the title of general? Levi said with a smile, which is generally used to address triumphant generals. Pompey on the side had a strange look on his face, and it seemed that Sulla had called him that at the beginning. You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve the first credit for this battle. Sulla laughed. If Levi hadn't defected, the battle might have been lost, not to mention the capture of Capua. At this time, he felt even more like a lucky man. Unlike other generals who claimed to win the battle by their own ability, Sulla always claimed that he was lucky to win the battle. Later, he added the Latin word felix, a person favored by luck, to the end of his name, so his full name became Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix. Levi was polite and then introduced him to other people. This is Pompey, Sulla said to a handsome young man. Levi had noticed Pompey a long time ago, and the only person who could be introduced by Sulla first was the legendary cuckolded handsome Pompey. Pompey was the kind of person who could obviously make a living by his face, but his talent was far superior to others. He held 3 triumphal ceremonies in his life, one for each of his victories in Africa, Europe, and Asia. This was unique even in Roman history. He was known as the son of Rome and was very much loved by the Roman people. He and Caesar were good friends. Caesar first cheated on Pompey, and Pompey, not to be outdone, married Caesar's daughter. The two were both allies of the Roman triumvirate and rivals for power in Rome. They loved and hated each other all their lives. So how could they be described as having a passionate relationship? I've always heard of your name, and I'm so glad to meet you. Levi hugged Pompey fiercely and said. Levi's enthusiasm surprised Pompey a little. He smiled and said, "You're also very good. At your age, I'm not as good as you." Levi raised 3 legions entirely on his own talents, while he relied on his family's property. Moreover, Levi had just come of age and was younger than him, so the difference was obvious. You are both young heroes of Rome. I think you are like the twin stars of Rome, able to make achievements and open up new territories for our Rome, Sulla said with a big laugh. He just said it casually, but he didn't know that it really became the title of Livius and Pompey. The two opened up the territory for Rome and made great contributions. Both sides introduced their own personnel. He didn't want Capua to be damaged too much, so he gave a lot of credit to Gellius and the senators. Those senators were very grateful. At this time when the city was broken, they were able to stand on the side of the victor. They really owed Levi too much. Sulla didn't know the truth, but he was very happy that Capua took the initiative to surrender, and he comforted them with kind words. In order to flatter Sulla, they spent a lot of money and held a grand banquet to entertain Sulla. Levi's sugar and famous wine were the protagonists. These things were all praised by those generals, and they really entered the upper class. The Battle of Capua shocked the whole of Rome and even the Mediterranean world. Levi's defection made the Roman Senate panic. After this battle, Sulla not only occupied the important Italian city of Capua, but also only needed to go north along the Appian Way for a few days to reach Rome. Moreover, Sulla's strength increased greatly and had surpassed Rome. Upon learning of this news, Scipio immediately led his army to retreat and entered the strategic defense stage. On the bustling streets of Capua, a large number of pedestrians in uniform were in a hurry. This included not only the people of Capua, but also some Roman soldiers. Half a month later, Capua quickly restored peace. At Livy's insistence, Sulla only liquidated a few people and even promised to exempt Capua from taxes for 10 years. As soon as the news came out, the whole of Capua was cheered. In this difficult war-torn era, with the skyrocketing food prices and the disruption of life order, everyone had to work hard for survival. The reduction of taxes undoubtedly greatly reduced the pressure on them. Chapter 97 Weapon Shop. On the busiest street in Capua, some actors' performances caused a traffic jam because Levi's weapon shop was about to open. This weapon shop was close to Levi's sugar shop, although it was a little inconsistent with the goods sold in the surrounding shops, as a shop that only sold top-level weapons. These were not a problem. Some people who had bought sugar and liquor were also pulled into the weapon shop, because those who could afford sugar and liquor were people with real consumption power. These people were either dignitaries or knights, and even included many officers, who were the buyers of top-level weapons. But after seeing the price, those people were not calm. A Syrian with a few men almost spit out the rock candy in his mouth, and said in shock, "What kind of sword is that? It's sold for 1,000,000 dinars. Are you crazy?" Several of his big customers also expressed their dissatisfaction. Although they were rich, they couldn't be slaughtered like a fat sheep like this. Valens coughed lightly. He also had some complaints about Levi's pricing, but in the face of Levi's insistence, he had no way to deal with it. Our master's goods are always priced at 1 cent per piece of goods, and he will never charge half a sesterce more. This sword is made of a lot of rare materials, takes a lot of time, and uses the family secret method, so it is so expensive. Valens said. The others looked contemptuous, bragging hard. Family secret? Why haven't they heard of any good swords from the Levi family? The Levi family used to be so poor that they didn't even look at them. And even if it was a family secret, it was not worth 1 million. Seeing that everyone didn't believe it, Valens looked helpless. In fact, not only did they not believe it, but even he didn't believe it. But in order to complete the master's order, he had to work hard to complete this task. We have a dagger specially used for sword testing here. It only costs 10,000 dinars. I wonder how much this dagger cost? Valens said to the Syrian. Levi's weapon shop currently only sells daggers, which are divided into 3 price ranges, namely 10,000 dinars, 300,000 dinars and 1 million dinars. 10,000 dinars is just an ordinary carburized steel sword, 300,000 dinars is a 10 refined dagger, and 1 million dinars is a 20 refined dagger. In order to promote his own weapons, Levi reluctantly took out a steel sword as a test product. My sword is a weapon of a famous Syrian craftsman, worth at least 50,000 dinars, the Syrian said proudly, and then took out his own dagger. The scabbard of this sword was inlaid with precious jewels, which looked extremely expensive. Why don't you let your sword chop against our cheapest sword? If your sword wins, we will pay you 50,000 dinars. If your sword loses, we don't want anything. What do you think? Valens said lightly. The Syrian hesitated a little. Since the sword was sold at a price of 10,000 dinars, it must have something extraordinary. If his sword was damaged, he would lose a lot. No, my sword is very expensive. I can't use it to fight this sword, the Syrian said, but he also came up with a solution. He pulled out a sword from his follower. You can try it with this sword. No problem, Valens said. So he ordered the 2 guards in the store to pick up a sword each and started a test of fighting each other. Everyone stared at the 2 swords, to see which sword was stronger. Ding! The 2 swords collided fiercely. Valens took a look, then smiled and showed the 2 swords to everyone. It's really a good sword. Someone couldn't help but praise. They found that there was a huge gap on the sword guarded by the Syrian. As long as the same part was chopped with at most 2 swords, the sword would be completely destroyed. The Syrian nodded secretly. The sword he guarded was certainly not a low-quality product. It turned out that such a big gap was cut by 1 sword, which meant that the quality of this sword was not inferior to his sword. Hearing the praises of the crowd, Valens smiled. This was a good start. I want to try it too. I wonder if it's possible. Another foreigner said at this time. He muttered to himself, these 2 people might know each other, and they are putting on a show here for people to see. He has been doing business all over the country, and this kind of thing has happened to him before. Of course there is no problem. All levels of swords here can be tried. But those swords need to pay 10,000 dinars to try them. But this one doesn't need it, Valens said with a smile. After hearing this, those people couldn't help but curse inwardly. What a black-hearted guy. Trying a sword actually costs 10,000 dinars. No wonder Levi is so rich. The foreigner pulled out a dagger from his hand, and conducted another mutual cutting experiment. As expected, Levi's steel sword won again. The rest of the people were not to be outdone. Anyway, they didn't need a sword to try it. After a few times, Levi's daggers all won, which attracted their admiration. So those steel swords that cost 10,000 were sold several times, and those that cost 300,000 dinars and 1 million dinars were not sold. They believed that it was a good sword, but it was too expensive. However, some people are interested in those swords, but they need to go back and discuss it. Some good things may get a return far exceeding their own value if they can be sold to the local king. Levi and Pompey were walking on the street with a few men. Although the 2 were not much different in age, their experiences were completely different. Pompey followed his father to fight in the army in his early years and had already had rich combat experience. Although Levi had 2 legions and had made up a lot of military knowledge, there was still a huge gap between him and Pompey. Therefore, he asked Pompey for a lot of knowledge, and Pompey was also generous in teaching, so that Levi learned a lot. To thank you for your advice, I will give you something good, Levi said. What? Pompey asked. Good sword. Today is the opening day of my weapon shop. I will give you a good sword, Levi said. Pompey did not comment on this. His weapon was a good sword passed down in his family. How good could Levi's sword be? But in the face of Levi's kindness, he couldn't bear to refuse, so he had to follow Levi to the weapon shop. "By the way, who pays your army's salary and food? Is it Sulla?" Levi asked. This is a very important question. In the past, I only thought about joining Sulla, but I didn't figure this out. Due to the skyrocketing food prices, the three legions have spent more than 800,000 dinars a month, which is an extremely heavy expense. Of course, since Levi had stored enough food in advance, the expenses were far less, but it was enough to make Levi heartbroken. "Thank you very much for the rewards from the power of silence and Lord Stephen. I feel a little powerless recently." Chapter 98, Creating a Legend. The war greatly affected his business, which was why he had to open a weapons shop to supplement his income. "Sulla has agreed to pay for my army's salary and food. I have lost my land, so how can I pay for the consumption of 3 legions?" Pompey said with a smile. "That's great. I will also discuss this issue with Sulla. He must not be partial to one side or the other," Levi said. "But your soldiers' salaries are too high. He probably only agrees to pay part of it," Pompey said. "Other legions only need to pay 112 denarii per soldier per year, and the soldiers provide their own food. Levi needs to pay 240 denarii per soldier, and Levi still prepares the food. The annual salary of the centurion of the Roman legion is 365 denarii, while Levi's is 960 denarii. Levi's expenses for maintaining a legion are more than twice that of an ordinary Roman legion." "I understand," Levi said with a wry smile. At that time, he really paid too much money. Now it's too late to regret it, but just treat it as the price of loyalty. The two soon came to Levi's weapons shop. Those customers were very happy to see Levi and Pompey coming. As long as Sulla can defeat Rome, Levi and Pompey will surely become big figures in Rome. It will be very beneficial for them to get to know these big figures. So these foreigners came forward to introduce themselves, and Levi had a hard time dealing with them. After all, customers are God, and they come to give money, so you can't just give them a cold shoulder. "Your weapons are so expensive." After seeing the prices of those weapons, Pompey said with a shocked face, "But with such a high price, can these weapons be sold?" "No. Just now he saw a dagger of 10,000 dinars sold." "You get what you pay for. It's expensive for a reason," Levi said with a smile. He drew out the only dagger worth 1,000,000 dinars, and then said, "Take out your sword." Pompey thought about it and drew out his dagger. Levi swung with all his strength, and the two swords collided. Ding-dang! Pompey's dagger was easily cut off, and a broken sword fell to the ground with a crisp sound. "How is this possible?" Pompey's face changed drastically. His sword was a famous sword, but he couldn't even block a single blow. If someone fought him with that sword, wouldn't he be easily killed? Others also exclaimed. This was Pompey's sword. Unexpectedly, his sword couldn't even block a single blow. This sword was indeed extremely sharp. "I'll give you this sword as compensation," Levi said with a smile. "This? How can I be so embarrassed?" Pompey said. This was a sword worth 1,000,000 dinars. How could he accept such a sword? "The sword is given to a famous general. In my eyes, there are too few people in the world who deserve this sword." "You are definitely one of them," Levi said with a smile. In fact, he has always wanted to make his sword the top brand in the Mediterranean. Aren't people like Pompey and Sulla the best advertising spokespersons? Even Pompey, the lifelong dictator and the son of Rome, used his weapons, whose weapon shop could be so awesome, and he decided to set a rule that those poor people with only money would not be able to buy his top-level weapons. Just like Rolls-Royce in later generations, customers would be screened. But soon an idea came to his mind. Even Rolls-Royce was just a luxury product, far from being a legend. Why didn't he create a legendary brand? Just like Ganjong and Moi, he would link his best weapons with those famous generals, create his own legend, and leave a good story in history. And is he short of money? But it seems that as long as he creates a legendary brand, he can make more money. Thinking of this, Levi could no longer sit still. One idea after another appeared in his mind, and those swords soon had their own owners. Sulla, Pompey, Caesar, Lucullus, and that one-eyed man Sertorius. Only these people who are famous in history are qualified to wear their own swords. From now on, This store will no longer sell this 1 million dinar short sword. Only the famous generals who are recognized by me can get this sword, Levi suddenly said. Hearing this, those people were shocked. What does this mean? Don't you want to make money? That's stupid. But what they didn't know was that 20 years later, some kings came to buy this short sword with 10 million dinars, but Levi didn't sell it. Levi's weapon shop not only became the best weapon shop in the Mediterranean, but also became a real legend. Pompey was deeply moved. He didn't expect that Levi would not even sell this sword for him. How can I be embarrassed? Pompey said. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. I have seen heroes in the world, and there are not many who can afford this sword. Levi wanted to talk about heroes over wine, but he thought about it and gave up. There were too many people who would be offended in this way, and there was no need for him to offend so many people with his small body. Pompey thought about it and accepted the sword. As a warrior, how could he not like this sword? But he kept this feeling firmly in his heart and decided to find a chance to repay him in the future. The owner of the executive officer's residence changed again. Sulla and his deputy general were discussing the latest situation. Although we defeated nobleman, we still can't be careless. Scipio and his son still have a large army. If he refuses to come out, it will be very troublesome for us, Sulla said. Now his strength has surpassed Scipio, but he dare not underestimate Scipio. After all, he is the family of the god of war in Rome, and attacking the enemy's camp always requires greater casualties, and our expenses have been huge recently, and our supplies are very tight, Dolabella said. Has the supplies from Greece and Syria not been delivered yet? Sulla asked. No, Dolabella said. Sulla felt a headache. The consumption of tens of thousands of troops during wartime is astronomical, especially now that the price of grain has skyrocketed. This consumption is even more terrible. Although he made a lot of money in Greece, he couldn't afford such consumption. Moreover, the enemy is constantly expanding its army with the funds of the treasury, and his expansion of the army must not stop. I think we should contact the nobles and knights from all over the country and ask them to sponsor some supplies, Dolabella said. Sulla nodded, and then said expressionlessly, this is a way. And there are also those cities that support Rome. If we take down those cities, we can seize some supplies from the cities. Hearing this, everyone nodded repeatedly. Seizing supplies would definitely not be peaceful, and many people would inevitably die. But no one pitied them. Since they wanted to be their enemies, they had to pay a price. Chapter 99, Military Expansion. At this time, a voice came from outside. General Pompey and General Levi are here. Levi and Pompey walked in together. Sulla's eyes flashed with a strange color. When did they become so close? But the strange color quickly disappeared. Everyone is here, Levi said with a smile, and then put a sword on the table. What is this? Sulla asked curiously. A real top-level famous sword, given to General Sulla, and I have something to ask for, Levi said with a smile. Oh. It's the famous sword worth 1 million dinars, Dolabella said. Yes, how did you know? Levi looked curious. This matter has been spread a long time ago, Dolabella said, and then looked at the sword with envy. This is a famous sword worth 1 million dinars, which has exceeded his entire fortune. What's going on? Someone asked. Levi told everything that happened yesterday. Hearing this, everyone's faces turned strange. Only the famous generals who are truly recognized by Levi can get this sword. Are they not as good as Pompey? Sulla looked happy. Did Levi still have good vision? He drew out the sword, and the sword gave off a chilly breath, as if the temperature of the whole room had dropped by 1 degree. Sulla gently stroked the fine pattern on the sword, but he had no idea why such a pattern appeared on the sword. So you think I am a famous general? Sulla said with a smile. Well deserved. The biggest reason why I support you is that I think Rome will not be your opponent, Levi said. Not bad, not bad. I will accept this sword. Although he didn't know how true or false Levi's words were, Sulla really liked it. Why not try it? Yesterday, that sword cut off Pompey's sword with one stroke, Dolabella said eagerly. Yes, let's see it. The other lieutenants said that they also wanted to see how sharp the sword of 1 million dinars was. I think it's good to try it too, Levi also said. He was very confident about this sword. Unless it was a sword from China in the east, there was no sword in the west that could rival this sword. Okay. Sulla thought for a moment and said, One of his personal guards took Levi's sword and chopped at the dagger in Sulla's hand. Ding dang! Sulla's sword was directly cut in two, and the tip of the sword fell directly to the ground. Everyone exclaimed. It was really a good sword. No wonder it was worth 1,000,000 dinars. It was really worth the money. Not bad, not bad. Sulla felt very satisfied. Levi was also very happy. In this way, his brand was also promoted. By the way, there is another very important thing. It costs a lot for me to maintain 3 legions. I wonder if you can afford some of our legion's expenses, Levi said. Everyone looked at each other. What they feared was really what they feared. Just now they talked about the shortage of supplies, and Levi was going to pay for the military again. Sulla frowned slightly. It was reasonable that he had to pay for the money, but now he was also very nervous. Levi's face changed slightly. Wouldn't it be that he was asked to maintain the expenses of 3 legions alone? This would really cost him his life. Your request is completely reasonable, but now our supplies are very tight, and we can only support you with a part of the money, Sulla said. How much? Levi asked. 300,000 dinars per month, Sulla said. In fact, he was not short of money. He collected a large amount of drachmas in Greece. But now the prices of various materials have risen to the sky, and money has become worthless. Moreover, he is planning to expand the army, and his funds are not enough. Levi couldn't help but frown. If it was before the war, 300,000 dinars a month might be enough to supply the expenses of 3 legions, but now, haha, it's not enough for food. You know the prices of various materials now. The price of food has risen to 6 times before the war, which is not enough for the legion's consumption, and we need to replenish arrows, javelins, weapons and armor, which all require a lot of money, Levi said. I know, but now we also have difficulties. I need to support 11 legions. I hope you understand the difficulties, and we also need to expand the army, Sulla said. Levi raised his eyebrows. Damn, these legions are difficult to maintain, and they are going to expand the army? It seems that war is indeed a game of burning money. I know you have money, and I hope you can also expand your army, Sulla said. Who said that? Levi said hurriedly. Who dares to say that I have money? Stand up. We have already found out how much you earn from sugar, liquor and swords. Don't pretend here. Nobleman looked like he had seen through his fancy pretending to be poor. Levi wanted to cry but had no tears. He originally wanted to make some money from Sulla, but he didn't expect to be beaten by the local tyrant. I decided to expand the legions to more than 22 within 2 years. I will give you a task. Expand 1 legion within this year and at least 1 more legion next year, Sulla said with a smile. Levi almost vomited blood. The task given to me was too heavy. Can I refuse? No, Nobleman answered first, as if he was very happy to see Levi suffer. Levi looked at him helplessly. What the hell are you doing here, you big fool? Since you want to expand 2 legions, give me some more money, Levi said. Sulla laughed and ignored him, and continued. We can't expand the army with our current income, so I decided to occupy nearby cities and get the supplies we need from those cities that support Rome. Hearing this, Levi became excited. Looting openly, it sounds good. He felt the huge gap in future funds, and it was time to find a way to make up for it. Then what about Scipio? Are we going to ignore him? Levi asked. I fought with Scipio a few days ago. He is a very difficult opponent. We need to be cautious, Sulla said with a serious face. Levi couldn't help but open his mouth. Scipio is a very difficult opponent. Are you sure you are not kidding? It seems that the history books record that the Scipio is very bad and surrendered without a fight. Ahem. Scipio only has a few legions now. I think we only need to fight Pompey's army and 1 of your legions to defeat Scipio, Livius said. He thought it would be nice to take some credit. Pompey opened his mouth wide. Why didn't he discuss this matter with him? Are you sure you can win? That's Scipio, Sulla said seriously. In fact, he was not too confident in Livius. After all, he was old, and he didn't have any brilliant achievements. Of course, this sneak attack didn't count. I promise to win, Livius said. Chapter 100 Discussion. Lions fighting rabbits also need to go all out. If you really fight, you have to go all out. I don't agree with your point of view, Sulla said with a serious face. What Sulla said seemed to make some sense, and all his legions had left, So who would defend Dragon City? And he had originally planned to happily paddling, but how did he end up taking on the task of attacking? Thinking of this, Levi no longer insisted. After returning, Levi began to prepare for military expansion and war. He recruited various craftsmen and asked them to make more arrows, javelins, weapons and armor. In addition, crossbows had to be made, all of which required a lot of supplies. Each legion had to be equipped with at least 55 crossbows, and 3 legions had 165 crossbows, plus the livestock that pulled the crossbows, which was a huge expense. Thinking of the money, Levi had the urge to vomit blood. Finally, he decided to find someone to share the money, so he found the knights and nobles of Capua and raised a lot of money from them. In fact, it was not only Levi who did this, Sulla was even more adept at it. He sent people to force donations from local tyrants in Italy, using threats and inducements. In addition, Sulla also sent out several armies to attack those areas that supported Rome. A large number of houses were destroyed and property was confiscated. Sulla's men were particularly cruel. When they went to Greece, their relatives and friends were killed by Marius and Cinna. After returning to Italy, they were very cruel. All the property of the nobles who supported Marius and Sulla was robbed by them. Rome also attacked those areas that supported Sulla. The two sides went back and forth, and Italy was in flames for a while. In a spacious and bright room made entirely of marble, Livius and his men were holding a military meeting. We in Sulla's 5th Legion attacked 3 small cities, more than a dozen towns and many villages, all of which were supporters of Rome. We received a total of 800,000 dinars, more than 1.67 million sesterces and a large amount of supplies. In addition, we also robbed many local craftsmen, a total of more than 2,000 people. Geta, commander of the 1st Legion of Capua, said, following Sulla's orders, he and Sulla's 5th Legion swept through those areas that supported Rome. Although they looted a lot of things, unfortunately many of them were taken away by Sulla. How much did we lose? Livius asked. 87 people were killed and more than 300 were injured. Most of them were injured when fighting the Lucanians. Their resistance was very fierce, and they had organized an army, so we had to retreat. As for other places, the resistance was not great, Geta said. Lucanians? Livius frowned. Lucania is located in the southern part of the Apennine Peninsula, south of Capua. Lucania and the Samnites have long had a tendency to split. When Marius and Sulla attacked Rome, they asked for autonomy. In order to win, Marius and Sulla agreed to their conditions, so they are now staunch supporters of Rome. I know. The 1st Legion will be stationed in Capua in the future. I have started recruiting the 4th Legion, and you will be in charge of this work. Find some new soldiers to make up for the losses of the 1st Legion. Those craftsmen should also be settled and let them start weapons production as soon as possible. Livius said. Many of the garrisons in Capua surrendered. These people were persuaded by Levi, and many of them decided to become Levi's men. Levi planned to form the 4th Legion with the deputy officers of the 2nd Legion and these surrendered soldiers as the skeleton, and add some new recruits, and the 4th Legion would almost come out. But in this way, his financial pressure would be even greater. Thinking of this, Levi felt a heartache. Okay, Geta said happily. It seems that Levi still trusts him very much and actually let him intervene in the recruitment of the 4th Legion. In a few days, I will lead the 2nd Legion and the 3rd Legion to attack Scipio with General Sulla, Levi said. Hearing this, everyone looked serious, and the war was about to break out again. Master, why not bring the 1st Legion as well? Scipio is not easy to deal with, Geta said worriedly. Levi looked annoyed. If it weren't for Sulla's insistence, he didn't want to lead any legion, only he knew how cowardly Scipio was. No need. Valens, you organize a caravan to Greece, Macedonia, Asia and Cilicia to sell our products there. As for the ships, we will use Sulla's transport ships. I have already agreed with him. Now we are under great financial pressure, so this matter depends on you. Levi said. That place used to be Sulla's territory. Due to the hostile relationship, the market there has not been fully developed. In addition, now we are in urgent need of various funds. Now is the right time to open up the market. I know, Valens said. After a few more instructions, The meeting finally ended. Levi couldn't help rubbing his face, and then stretched his body. He was too busy recently. At this time, he heard that there seemed to be movement at the door. He opened his eyes and found that Cybele was looking inside. After realizing that Levi had found him, Cybele smiled and walked in with a tray. "I heard that the meeting was over, and I knew you were very tired, so I brought you some things to help you relieve your fatigue." Cybele put a pot of wine on the table, then took out a glass and filled it for Levi. Levi drank the wine. As there were too few drinks now, he gradually got into the habit of drinking wine. Cybele put his hands on his neck and pressed them up, the corners of Levi's mouth slightly raised. He knew that Cybele's purpose was not simple. A huge army was winding forward. After making necessary preparations, Sulla led 11 legions and more than 6,000 cavalrymen to attack Scipio's camp outside the city of Theron. The entire army stretched for more than 10 kilometers and looked extremely large. Levi rode a war horse and walked in front of his guard. He was not used to this. How could the commander of an army walk in the front? But this was the rule of the Roman army. Fortunately, there were other Roman legions in front of him, so he didn't have to worry about enemy attacks. After walking for a day, it was finally time to set up camp and eat. At this moment, a cavalryman rushed over. "General Levi, Sulla asks you to discuss military affairs." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.